All right, what's going on? It is drive time on a Friday afternoon, Friday weekend time. Congratulations. You made it to the weekend. You showed up. You did all the things. And we have a rather mild weekend. Couple tee times locked in. Going to walk 9 at Forestdale this weekend. But it does look like, for all you folks that love winter, we're going to get hit next week with a pretty big storm, both in the benches and up in the mountains. So you're going to have plenty of time to shred the gnar, as the ski bros like to say. But happy Friday. Great to have you with us. People are angry today. Okay, we're not going to stoke the flames. We're going to try to talk through this like grown-ups and adults, as the Utah Jazz were fined $500,000 last night, right after we got off air, actually. The announcement came down. The Indiana Pacers were fined $100,000. And the inferiority complex that exists in our state is raging. Radio hosts are mad. People pick on Utah. This is a small market thing. Why does the NBA hate the Utah Jazz? Ryan Smith and his straight brim hat upset that his franchise was fined for a game they actually won. So everyone's mad today. We're not going to take that route because I don't agree with it. We'll get into it, but just so you know how we're going to approach this today, the Jazz absolutely deserve this. They absolutely deserve this. And save the minute restriction BS. What a bad faith. Like, what are you going to run for president? Muddy the waters, flood the zone with things that aren't true. We know what you're doing. We know what you've been doing for 4 years now. Okay, so the Jazz deserved this. Here's the issue. 9 other teams also either have deserved this or will deserve this the rest of the way. There are still 25 to 28 games left. It is not even Valentine's Day. It is barely mid-February. Stuff like this is usually saved for March and April. Okay, but the amount of teams that are doing it this early in the calendar does make it new. All right, so we're going to get to it. Part of me feels like this is manufactured media outrage because it's been going on forever. Why are we doing this now? Teams have been doing this since the early to mid-'90s, ever since, the lottery back in 85, Patrick Ewing, no frozen envelope to my New York Knicks. But ever since the lottery and certainly after the lottery odds were flattened, it completely had the opposite effect. Adam Silver might not be very good at this, okay? But we got a lot to do. Friday show. Good to have you with us. My name is Spence Checketts, hosting the program. Porter Larson producing the show. We'll get to the latest in the world of college basketball to get you ready for a Saturday full of both local and national college basketball. I just missed college football. Colorado, BYU tomorrow down in Provo. And James Taft Fredette, better known as Jimmer, will have his number retired by Brigham Young. The Utes hit the road to take on Cincinnati. Utah State welcomes in, is it Memphis? Utah State leading the Mountain West Conference. The Lady Utes also taking on Cincinnati. Actually, Utah will be on the road, and then the Lady Utes will play at home, the Utah women's basketball team. Chris Paul has announced that after 21 seasons, he is stepping aside without a championship. Very John Stockton-like career in a lot of ways, the best point guard of this generation, and that's really not even close. Decided that he stepped aside. It was kind of a bummer to watch his career derail into him simply just being a malcontent off the court and more of an irritant and a liability on the court than the best point guard of this generation. But some big news out of the NBA. So a lot of storylines to get to on the show today. I don't know if we'll talk All-Star Weekend. It's wild to me that it's here, and I just don't give a rip. It used to be like my favorite weekend in the NBA calendar. But we'll get to some of the storylines. What is this? Is Bad Bunny coaching? Free agent Beasley signs with Bad Bunny's. Bad Bunny owns a basketball team in Puerto Rico, and Malik Beasley is signed with Bad Bunny's team in Puerto Rico. The NBA is so weird, man. All right, our first guest. We will bring Dave McMenamin on, and we will be nice to him because I blatantly insulted him a couple of weeks ago. But he has been part of this national conversation for the worldwide leader that, for whatever reason, has honed in on the Utah Jazz. So Dave will be our first guest. The PGA Tour is back in full swing. So today we will bring in Paul Pugmire. Tony Finau, top 20 spot right now. If Tony could get a top 20 finish, I know that's not a great standard for a golfer who once upon a time was one of the best to do it. But Tony's hanging in. He's with the group that is 7 under. He's 1 over today, so he's tied for 14th. Your leader is Akshay Bhatia at 14 under. Then pretty Ricky Fowler. What a rise for Ricky today. 13 under. Min Woolley's at 12 under. Sam Burns is also at 12 under. So we'll do some golf with Paul Pugmire today. If there is a picture from the world of sports that was taken between, 1960 and 1990, or maybe even further than that, it may have been taken by Andrew Bernstein, who's a good friend of the show, has a great podcast. So we'll bring in Andrew today to talk some NBA. And then another Andrew, this one an Andy, unbelievable skier and football player. How many of those are there out there? Andy Phillips, former Ute, good friend of the show, will stop by on a Friday afternoon. So Dave McMenamin, Paul Pugmire, Andrew Bernstein, Andy Phillips, me, Spence Checketts, all you the great listeners. Are you angry today? You're supposed to be angry today, Porter. Are you mad today?
No, I'm kind of in the middle, I think. Not to sit the fence. But I've made my thoughts on the situation pretty clear. I think that, number one, I'm actually glad that the league is putting some guardrails in place and at least enforcing them as far as the tanking thing goes. I am, believe it or not, in favor of competition when it comes to basketball. And on the same note, the league hasn't fined how many other teams? 10, 11, 12 that are also doing this throughout the course of the season. The part where I think is tricky is that the Jazz won the game in which the league decided to fine them for. They also are now policing rotations and minutes of players that are active. That's a place that I don't know the league really wants to govern, and they have now kind of entered that zone. And it's the same league that found no wrongdoing of Terry Rozier in their own investigation, and then a month later saw him arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So I have a lot of issues with the current state of the league office. I don't have an issue with them enforcing tanking issues, and the real problem there is doing it arbitrarily. I guess that's where we're at. Now, a couple things. Shred the gnar.
That's what the Ski Bros say.
You said you're in with the Ski Bros. That was like 1980s.
No. They still my friends who are Ski Bros still they still say shred the gnar.
Are they wearing day glow?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't been skiing with them, and here's the one that really this is the one. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. When it's gonna dump powder, they say they're gonna go get some cheddar, it pisses me, dude. That will ruin a weekend for me. If I hear one of my friends say that, I'm like, you have to leave.
So
get it, go, leave.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of Ski Bro friends, man. I feel like I speak the lingo.
I guess you're of that age. I
thought shredding the gnar was like the thing that people say.
I guess so still.
One
other thing.
Wait, hold on. What do the young Ski Bros say?
Good question.
Well, you can't knock on my saying if you don't have one to replace it.
That's fair.
I bet they say shred the gnar.
Probably a little bit.
Get the cheddar. That's the worst one.
One other thing. Just
what's up?
Best point guard of the generation?
Chris Paul. It's not even close.
It's LeBron James.
No, just okay. Like, we have to do opening tip. I didn't even know we were doing that. We're not doing that today. Okay.
What is a primary ball handler?
Porter,
if not
we have
guard?
a sponsor for opening tip. I haven't had nicotine all day. Okay, don't do this. You don't want to do this. I'm getting off nicotine. It's a process, so you need to be gentle today.
Okay.
Don't bring up LeBron as the. All right, Dave McMenamin is our first guest. But before Dave, it's time for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
I do want to clarify one thing real quick. It's true. I have no nicotine all day. I'm trying to get off it. It's going to take all weekend, so I'm a little bit grumpy. But anyway, shout out to our good friends at Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 And they're going to hook you up with $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN 700. You get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right. Well, we've been covering this on this show for 4 years. I'm not sure why everybody is now up in arms about something that's been happening right in front of our faces with the Utah Jazz, and every year at least 6 or 7 other teams. At least. This year, that number is 10. And the number of teams that I'm talking about are teams that currently are under the NBA umbrella who are unserious about competing. And it makes for an absolutely unwatchable regular season product. You take the teams that are tanking, and there are 10 of them this year, and then the teams who employ employees that don't feel like they have to show up for work, and for 5.5 months, NBA basketball more or less sucks. It didn't used to be like this, but that's the way it is now. And what the league does is they lean into their $72 billion TV media deal they signed to say, okay, you can say we suck all we want. Look at our P&L statement. Okay, fine, but you have to look at your product at some point. Sorry, maybe that's old school. So they say we are swimming in money, and you still watch the playoffs, which is true. Playoff ratings are through the roof. And ironically enough, for some platforms, the ratings for NBA basketball reportedly have gone up. I don't know that I fully believe that, and maybe I'm just cynical because I feel like everybody's lying about everything all the time, whether it's politics, whether it's minute restrictions for a player that played 38 minutes last week. Like, all of this BS is exhausting. And to cut through to the bottom line, I've listened to people all day, okay? And the whole, like, the NBA hates us because we're in Utah thing is so boring and so exhausting. And it's so not true. The Jazz are not being singled out because we're in Utah. Okay, there's a world that exists that the Jazz are being singled out as a result of all the attention that was brought to this by the national NBA media. And certainly we're going to talk to Dave about this as he joins us. It's one of the things that's been so confusing to me listening to NBA podcasts and watching NBA shows over the past week or 10 days. Like, why are you only talking about the Jazz? Now, let me be clear. I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier today, and this is how I feel. The Jazz deserve this punishment. I just heard people yell all day like we don't deserve this. Like Ryan Smith is walking a fine line here, okay? Just remember, this is a corporation that is the NBA, and the Jazz are one portion of the NBA. They're an entity that essentially is under the umbrella. To publicly criticize a fine as the owner in this league is something that in the past has got owners fined hundreds of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Jim Dolan, Mark Cuban, I could keep going. Slippery slope that he's deciding to go down. I know he's getting a couple of likes on his tweet, so congrats on that. The Jazz deserve this. Here's my issue. My issue is not that the NBA fined the Jazz. The Jazz deserve this punishment. My issue is why the Jazz, why now, why only them, okay? Because if you're going to do this, if you're going to decide that you're finally getting serious about this issue, and by the way, what the hell took you so long? Where have you been? We've all been watching this since the mid-'90s. We did the David Robinson experiment, okay? Go look at David Robinson's game played per year. 82, 82, 82, 68, 82, 82. 1996, 1997, he played in 6 basketball games. One story, because there's enough smoke screen that they can use to say, like, oh, Lowry's on a minute restriction. That's why I sat him in the fourth quarter. Or Jaren with the knee. Like, all of the things we're being told, distracting us from what's actually going on. This has happened for years. It happened in 96, 97, where the report was David Robinson had, I think it was a back injury. The rumor around the league is that David Robinson was rehabbed and ready to go. And the Spurs just said, go home and watch the kid who's playing for Wake Forest. His name's Tim Duncan. Okay? So if we just have you sit aside all year, this was in 1996. Okay? It's 2026. This was in 1996. This was 30 years ago. And every year since then, at least one, if not multiple teams have been doing this. So why the Jazz? Why now is my gripe. Not the punishment. They deserved it. Just like the Spurs deserved it when they were tanking for Tim Duncan. Just like the Spurs deserved it when they were tanking for Victor Wembanyama. Just like the Raptors deserved it last year when they were not even hiding the fact that they were sitting Scotty Barnes in the fourth quarter, the same thing the Jazz have done this year. Now, some of the reporting around this has been really unfortunate. And some of the reporting around this has been, quite frankly, untrue. I can tell you that Oklahoma City is not calling the NBA to complain about what the Jazz are doing. I'm not sure who said that, but it's like everything else these days. One report goes out on a tweet and somebody else is like, oh, sweet, that's salacious. Let's send that out to get clicks. That's not happening. So this whole like Oklahoma City, how dare, like, where are you getting this information? Do you really think Sam Presti, who, by the way, has the best team in the league right now and the best assets moving forward to continue to acquire talent, you think Sam Presti is taking 10 minutes out of his day to call Adam Silver about Will Hardy sitting Jaren Jackson Jr.? Are you nuts? I don't know who reported that. Some of the reporting around this has been really sloppy. And honestly, it's easy to see who's just making crap up. So bottom line is this. The Jazz deserve this. But so do 9 other teams this year, either retroactively or moving forward. And every year since 1996-97, you can go back and look. We can identify at least 2 or 3, sometimes 5 or 6, this year 10 teams that go about their business in order to manipulate lineups, manipulate injury reports, make sneaky player acquisitions, pretend like they're developing players to bring up G League guys or whatever in the name of making sure they're where they want to be to have the best spot possible to get a high lottery pick to draft a generational player. It's part of the way the league works. It's part of the way the league is built. It's the NBA pro basketball ecosystem, and it's not new, but I don't know why right now it's suddenly getting all this attention. I will be nice to Dave McMiniman. He's going to join us coming up after a quick break on a Friday Drive. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Just excuse me, just dawned on me. A Curb Your Enthusiasm episode on the tanking issue in pro basketball would be phenomenal.
Oh, it would.
I mean, to hear Larry David talk about Will Hardy sitting Jaren Jackson Jr. in the fourth quarter would be great. All right, Dave McMenamin, we are mad in Utah. We're angry, okay? We are fired up. The NBA hates everybody and everything about Utah. Your thoughts?
Well, is it the NBA that hates them, or is it Oklahoma City that hates them?
Okay, all right. So let's start there. Okay, I'll just say that I was told, because I'm doing a bunch of what is going on here, trying to figure stuff out. I was told that the report about Oklahoma City complaining was completely false and made up. But do you have a different understanding of that?
No, I have only seen the report. I don't have the independent reporting, and that is interesting. That if it would come out of that's usually not the case. The stuff that we see, but I mean.
Dave, we got a little connection issue. I'm not sure. You sound like you just jumped into a tunnel.
You got me now?
Yep, there he is. So we heard nothing. We heard nothing. So we need your entire response to that.
Okay. I was just saying that I think I would be surprised if it was completely made up. But, sometimes there are stories that bubble to the surface that have zero veracity to them. The bigger thing here is it tanking or is it not? And that seems to be the pushback, at least what I've seen from the Jazz owner against one of my esteemed colleagues in Bobby Marks. And I am having a hard time seeing any argument that it has not been a degree of tanking.
So just to be clear about where I'm at, because a lot of people out here are yelling hey, the Jazz didn't deserve this. The Jazz very much deserve this, okay? They've deserved it for 4 years. The beef I have, Dave, is why only the Jazz? Like I said, find the Jazz. I've been complaining about this blatant approach to being uncompetitive for a long, long time. So I think the Jazz deserve this, but why are they being singled out is my question.
And that's a fair question, especially let's just pick one team on the Eastern Conference, the Washington Wizards, right? There was reports when Anthony Davis was on the Mavericks that this hand issue, he hoped to be back playing sometime in February. And then now he's traded from Dallas to Washington, and he's likely not to play again the rest of the season. What is that?
Right, right.
I think that's something that needs to come under focus. Trae Young, when he was on Atlanta, same deal. It wasn't he had a season-ending injury, and then he goes to Washington. We haven't seen him. And so I think that's a fair point. Now, obviously, we should mention that Indiana was dinged as well. The penalty was $100,000 versus $500,000. But I think where does it stop now, right? If Adam Silver in the league office is going to open up Pandora's box, there's, 8 teams in the league right now that should be under scrutiny.
At least you can make an argument that it's 10. But, I guess the thing, I think it comes down to the approach, right? So I've got to unpack this with you because the accusation that is floating out there is as a result of national NBA media members who have a lot of power and who have a lot of attention like you and Bobby. And, oh, by the way, who scared Windhorst straight? Who sent Windhorst the text that knocked him off this scent? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't even know what you're referring to.
Oh, okay. So Windhorst, because I listen to the Hoop Collective with those guys. Obviously, we have Tim and both Tims on quite a bit. So Windhorst on NBA Today, or no. It was on, I saw a clip, he was on First Take or something. And then on his pod today, just said, he said, I'm not ruining any more relationships by talking about tanking. All of these teams get a free pass. Did you not hear him say that?
I didn't have a look to his pod today.
Okay.
I haven't. Yes, I need more context to comment on.
Porter, please text Brian Windhorst to let him know Dave McMenamin does not support his work. Dave, go ahead. Sorry.
No, but let's get into the bigger issue here of the system is in place right now for the lottery to reward the worst teams. And I think that's kind of the fundamental issue because the teams that are participating and tanking, whether you want to call it or not, are just trying to find the incentives that the league has in place. And so I think until the league fixes the root issue there and comes up with some other alternative for which the top picks are rewarded, disseminated throughout the league, then this will be a recurring issue. This will be a Sisyphean task to try to, whack-a-mole teams that are looking to tank. Because, ultimately, you're going to tell a team doctor that, they don't know what they're talking about, call them a liar. Like, it's a pretty dicey situation for the league to find themselves in.
Yeah, and this is as a result of the incentive structure of pro basketball. But let me finish kind of where I was going before I remembered I wanted to ask you about Windhorse. There just are a lot of people out in this way, this direction, I should say, that for the past week, 10 days have heard the loudest voices in NBA media only talk about the Jazz as a result of what was a very blatant move, having leads in the fourth quarter and sitting your best players. Like,
Right,
and look, don't give me the minute restriction thing. I'm sorry. Like, that's a bad faith argument. And I know we're supposed to be like, well, hey, injuries are real. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But Lowry played 38 minutes last week and looked fine, and Jaren Jackson Jr. looked awesome, okay? I know what's going on. We all know the deal. But I'm going to further underscore my point. There are at least 6 other teams, if not 9, doing the same thing that the Jazz are doing, just using different mechanisms and different language and wording. So a lot of people believe that the attention that the Jazz were receiving from very loud media members that have a lot of pull are ultimately is what led Adam Silver to basically enacting this on the Jazz specifically. To that, you say what?
I would say I'd get back to the first thing we talked about. And again, I don't have sourcing on that, but I think it's convenient for people within the league to blame the media versus blame other owners or other front offices potentially being the whistleblowers. And also, like, yes, what the Jazz is doing, in my opinion, is no different than what a handful of teams are doing. However, there is the perception part of it, right? And here's another Windhorseism. He likes to say when it comes to tampering, there are no rules, but break them at your own peril. And it's kind of the same deal with tanking. There aren't necessarily official rules, but if it starts to look so blatant that it becomes a black eye, and then, I'm not going to defend the media to the point where I would suggest that there aren't people that parrot one another's points, and then it becomes a news cycle. Certainly, the media is to blame for that all the time. However, it didn't come out of nowhere. That Atlanta game, right? Like, that was ridiculous. And I'm not watching the Jazz every night, but that got on my radar relatively quickly. That they're peeling back their guys when it's a competitive game. And it's like, listen, I remember a game I covered in San Antonio the year the Spurs were, trying to get into the lottery to get Wemby. They had a 10-point lead in the third quarter, and all of a sudden, and they were pounding the Lakers on the glass, and all of a sudden, Jerry Sohan and Jakob Poeltl didn't play the rest of the game, and we knew what was happening. So it's not like the Jazz are the originators of this or doing anything that's more blatant or unethical or whatever you want to use for the negative adjective than any other team. It just so happens, though, but they were called out for it. And I doubt they were only called out for it by the media.
Let's operate off the premise that Oklahoma City, through back channels, is actually furthering this message. I want to be clear. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe it's true because Oklahoma City has done this exact same thing on 2 different occasions to get Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey, who they later traded to turn into Alex Caruso. Sam Presti has utilized the same philosophy and the same approach on multiple occasions to make sure they were in a good position to hopefully capitalize on a good draft pick and get good players. So if Sam Presti is really furthering this in back channels, which again, I want to be clear, I don't believe he's doing that. But if we operate off the premise he is, Dave, that reeks of real hypocrisy to me.
Right. I don't want to cast aspersions to him specifically. I would just say NBA executives as a whole, I don't find to be so holier than thou where they wouldn't do what's convenient for them one day and then point a finger at the same person doing the same thing the next day. I'm not saying that specifically to Sam Presti. And to be clear, you've investigated it, and I trust your sourcing on this, that you bring it to the radio program. So I'll even remove OKC from the conversation. I'll just say that if the national media is being kind of pointed at as the reason for this hammer falling on the Jazz, I would strongly suspect that it wasn't just media reports and podcast segments and television discussion that was getting in the ear of Adam Silver. I mean, I don't, for instance, the referees, right? That's a talking point all the time. JJ Redick has a portal where he will go in after every game and submit clips to the league office to express his disappointment in the way the game is called. I would have to think that there's also some sort of mechanism for league executives to express concern about how other teams are operating their business.
Well said. At the risk of beating the horse who is already long gone, let me just ask why. Because, look, I watch NBA today, and I listen to the NBA pod you guys do, and I listen to Lowe, and I listen to a lot of NBA stuff with Simmons or whatever, and I can corroborate that a lot of the conversation does feel that it's centered around the Utah Jazz specifically, and I'm not saying you are, but is ignoring in large part the other teams that are doing this. And I just wonder, before we move on from this, at the risk of cooperating the point we've already discussed, I just wonder if you have any idea why that seems to be the case.
I don't. I mean, I'm not even, there is I don't even want to get into it. There was, a Jazz reporter that put up a conspiracy theory of his on Twitter yesterday. I found that to be ridiculous, quite frankly. I don't think it has anything to do with any vendetta. At least I can speak for ESPN reporters. I don't think it has anything to do with any vendetta that our ESPN NBA staff has against the way the Jazz front office has been structured over the last couple of years. I strongly believe that.
Sounds like I missed a tweet. You probably don't want to say this person's name on air, do you?
I'll send it to you off air, and then you can do what you want with it.
Oh, okay. And look, I love Bobby. Bobby Marks, I think I'm the only person in Utah right now that is like pro Bobby Marks. My man is catching strays. And Bobby's great. Like, if there's a trade that I'm trying to digest, I'll text him, and he just very quickly gets back to me to help me understand, exactly what's happened with the transactions and the numbers and what's next. Like, he's great. And I love that he was in front offices and he brings that approach to the media side, because he's very helpful. I think anybody who covers the league learns a lot from Bobby Marks. But to utter the phrase, like, and I'm paraphrasing, something about the integrity of the league, I think that caught a lot of people in a spot that, isn't necessarily comfortable. So just give me your thoughts on that, or maybe you agree with them. Like, we had Smitty on yesterday. Smitty completely agrees with them. Maybe you think the Jazz are compromising the integrity of the NBA.
I will say this. I love Bobby Marks, one of the best colleagues I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll put that at the forefront of this conversation. I don't have a problem with the way he termed it. However, I don't think that the Jazz are unique whatsoever in their approach. And so if we are going to use that word to describe what the Jazz are doing, let's open up the aperture and apply that word to a handful of teams. And let's go back. I grew up a ardent Philadelphia 76ers fan. I was offended to my core at the process era of Sam Hinkie. I fundamentally thought it was the worst thing you could imagine. And now there were some Sixers fans that got behind it because they said, oh, well, this is our only path of relevancy and blah, blah, blah. We'll sacrifice 4 years of competitive basketball that sets us up for a decade of being sustainable success. I just think that's a terrible way to approach the game. I think it had major lasting implications on the careers of a lot of the young players that came through the Sixers organization at that time. I think it, I'm sure turned off potential Sixers fans. They could have been Sixers fans for life. and instead they're suffering through intentional 10 to 15 win seasons year after year, I think it's just bad. And I think it is certainly not the way basketball should be approached. Like, I think Hack-a-Shack's unethical. I think that the league should have done something to address that. Anything that, like, you can see it and you know it's not the way this thing is supposed to be done, at some point the league should step in. And now this is, you could say that this is like, you know, given a traffic ticket to a federal offense right now, what the league's doing with the Jazz and the Pacers. And I'd probably agree with you. But maybe this could be the start of a recognition that this has gotten out of hand. We're going to try to stem the tide of it for the remainder of this season. And obviously, you know, not fair to the Jazz that they're the one team gets dinged that much while other teams still do it. And then our competition committee has to really look at redoing the incentive structure, because if we are going to our NBA All-Star weekend and the dominant discussion is the teams that are intending to not play competitive basketball, then we've lost our way.
Well said, and I'm sure Adam's going to be, Commissioner Silver's just going to be inundated with questions about this and this only. What'd you make of Ryan Smith electing to go public on social with the pushback? It's, you know, I've been around this league my entire life, man, and I've seen owners who get sideways with commissioners, and I mean, we keep saying slippery slope. I hate the term, but, you know, owners will get fined, and if you get sideways with the league office, like, I always keep this in mind. Somebody said this to me a long, long time ago. The corporation is the NBA and the teams are the entities. Like, you are under the NBA umbrella. So if you're an owner, you've got to make good with the commissioner, and Ryan elected to go public. What'd you make of that?
Listen, I've heard nothing but great things about Ryan Smith. I've, you know, been around him a couple times, particularly when Utah, Salt Lake City hosted All-Star Weekend. I found him to be a compelling guy. I've been there for games, and some of the initiatives that the Jazz do are unique and I think are great for the fan base. And so, fan of Ryan Smith. I think also, like, you can probably engender some sort of loyalty and excitement from your fan base by, you know, being like David versus the Goliath and being like, you know, that's not right. I need to put my foot down. Okay. I would hope that that's not the one note that he's playing. My guess would be it's not. But I would say it would be folly for him as an owner to put his organization in a standpoint where I'm constantly an irritant versus the league office. I don't think it helps you in the long run.
I don't know Adam the way I knew Commissioner Stern, but if this was David Stern, Ryan Smith would have received a phone call 5 minutes after sending that tweet. You think Adam reached out?
I actually do. Whether it was Adam or Mike Bass or Mark Tatum, I would think so. Yeah, Adam. I mean, he's not the confrontational style that David Stern has, but I don't think he's avoidant either. I just think he takes a completely different tact.
Let me move over into the space of solutions, because ultimately I've always been bothered, whether it's sports or politics or life, when somebody just bitches about a problem and has nothing to say about how to solve it. And there are so many options out there. The extreme options. Tom Haberstroh on the show this week just said, let's just do away with the draft altogether and make it like college basketball, where you just recruit people to play for your teams. I've heard things like, if you get a top 5 pick, you're ineligible the next year. Are there any solutions, Dave, that you've heard that you do think actually solves this problem of teams being unserious about competing?
So I do like the top. I think the proposal I saw was top 4 pick, whatever. But yeah, I do like that proposal because it doesn't completely do away with the idea of, if your team has a tough year, it's completely out of their control. Like Indiana this year, right? Like Tyrese Halliburton tears Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and Miles Turner leaves as a free agent. Like, you're not set up for success. And so for that group to relatively try to keep the core intact and just hold on for the next year when guys get healthy, and then, you know, you get the potential to add a nice player to the mix after that year of suffering, I think is like the right intention for the rule. However, though, I think if you do take away the chance of getting it 2 years in a row, you're not going to have another Sam Hinkie, or most likely not have another Sam Hinkie, because it's going to be hard to convince an owner that we want to stay in that cycle, even though it's only one every 2 years that we get to potentially capitalize on it. I think that's a good one. I don't like the idea of once all the teams are eliminated, now you're going to get as many wins as you can. That will determine who actually gets the draft picks, because then you're asking a lot of teams probably built around young players to play their ass off over the final, 15, 20 games, when the games don't matter in the standings anymore, to be rewarded with their replacement in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a crazy one to me. McNairn is a very smart guy. I've known him for years, works with the Celtics. He has like a wheel system where the draft, and he's presented it to the NBA. Zach Lowe wrote about it maybe about a day ago, where everybody's going to get their turn, and it's 20 years out. And so you know that in 2034, I'm going to get the number one pick. And it's almost like a snake draft when you're drafting for fantasy football. And so you can plan accordingly. I mean, again, that doesn't necessarily help a team that is all of a sudden has a scenario like Indiana just went through, but it does, I think, would just discourage some of the chicanery that teams do, where, wow, there's 4 great guys at the top of this draft, and we're probably a play-in level team this year. What does a play-in level team get us? So let's try to strip down and hide some injuries or fake some injuries or whatever you want to call it, and to get a chance for those top 4 guys. I do think the wheel system would address that. But the one that I've seen that I like so far is, like, you can't get a top 4 pick in consecutive years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's clear. It's now clear that this has caught the league's attention, and so it's now clear that they're on it. So I would imagine something's going to come down the pipeline. But before I let you go hang out with Shabuzi, because I know it's All-Star Weekend and you're pumped, I will tell you this, Dave. It was only 49 minutes over the course of 3 games. Jaren Jackson Jr. looked awesome. And with the way that Will Hardy was kind of utilizing him, it was almost like having 2 Lauri Markkanens on the floor together. Jaren Jackson Jr. had the freedom to take the ball up. He was a ball handler in pick and roll action. He was setting picks. He was popping. He was shooting threes. He plays a lot like Lauri. His off-ball movement for a big, it's been talked about for years, is really exceptional. So, unfortunately, we're not going to see him all year long, but I think in a 3-game little peak, it looked really good. I know you're not watching the Jazz much, but give me your thoughts on that.
I think that he does get dinged for being a big man who doesn't rebound, right? But if you just take that away and then look at the things he does, and he can be a hub at the foul line extended, where you can work through him, and he can have the passing ability and the court vision to find cutters along the baseline. He can step out the 3 in pick and roll situations. He has like a solid demeanor and where he's going to be staying in the game and not getting have big emotional swings. And quite frankly, I don't know why this is, but I do feel like big men tend to sometimes have bigger emotional swings in other positions. All those are big positives. And again, I think it was a smart decision, because he's proven, as Memphis has had many different iterations since they seem to be ascending towards the top of the West in 2023. It's been a lot of different situations since then. He's remained a constant. His work ethic hasn't waned. His production hasn't waned. And he seems to be someone that, would put him in a better situation where, they're not dealing with all that off-court stuff and whatever. We all know what's happened in Memphis the last couple of years. That there's probably even another level he can get to. So for all those reasons, I think it was just a really smart move by the Jazz.
Let me peg you for one more, and you can be quick because I know you got to roll. But I was thinking of you the other night when I was watching Spurs-Lakers, and I know there was no LeBron or Luka or Austin Reeves. But I say this all the time. When I try to figure out the next great thing in the NBA, to me, it's always what feels different. Like Kobe was awesome, but we had kind of seen that. LeBron felt different than we had ever seen. And Wembanyama is the first player, probably since LeBron, where you go, okay, I've never seen that before. Like 17 straight in the first. He had 25 points in the first quarter. What's it like to see that up close when he's doing it the way he was doing it? And is it time to just say out loud, like, San Antonio is not coming, San Antonio is here?
Absolutely. I think they're here. Now, whether they can do what they did to OKC in the playoff series that they've done in the regular season remains to be seen. But I think the clock starts now where we consider them a true contender. Like, they should be a perennial Final Four team in the NBA. And then the Wemby part, I mean, obviously he's the biggest part of that, but the performance he had against the Lakers the other night, it was like he showed up to the arena to make a statement that it doesn't really matter what's going on that other sideline. Second night back-to-back, they have their own thing. I'm going to come and take over this thing. And the aggression that he played with, I know he got a lot of credit earlier in the year for changing his shot diet and being closer to the basket, but the way he was hunting threes against the Lakers after playing close to the basket was like, oh, wow, how intentional is this? And how much did you come in with a game plan to set up the defense for that being your next punch? Just tremendous. And, the way that even that game was completely out of hand, and he made sure, like, if I get 37, it's a little bit different if I get 40. And so I'm going to do my work early in the third, get my 40. I can check out 26 minutes, and then I can look back at this as kind of like a moment that I had. And I thought the way he opened up this season against Dallas, and you're going to try to put Cooper Flag on my level? No way. And he completely dominated that game. And I felt kind of the same way against the Lakers. I'm arriving in LA All-Star Week. I don't care if Luka and LeBron aren't playing. I'm the main attraction, and you better make notice because this is going to be my league for a long time.
Impressive to watch. Hey, just so you know, I did some recon, and Prince Harry's cool with it. So spread the word, will you?
Okay, I got you.
All right. Dave McMenamin, the great Dave McMenamin. A lot of people around here upset at ESPN these days and their ESPN NBA media personalities who have been talking about the Jazz as the team that is most responsible for a situation that has occurred in pro basketball for literally 30 years. It's puzzling. I'll repeat, this is not a take that most people around here have had because it's this inferiority complex we have in the state of Utah that is so weird to me. The Jazz deserve this. Okay, this is not the NBA punishing little old Utah. Can we stop, please? It makes us look so small. The Jazz deserved to be punished. The issue is so do 9 other teams. That's the issue. It's not the punishment for the Jazz. The issue is why just them. But we'll get into this coming up a little bit later. We're going to have Paul Pugmire stop by. We'll do a little golf, Andrew Bernstein, and then a little football later on with our buddy Andy Phillips. Busy Friday show. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Did you ever do any recon to find out if we had any live Dave in the system?
Yeah, we only have. I think I might have told you the Christmas song.
That's the only live Dave we have.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I think the problem was memory, storage.
Yeah. At some point, you're going to run out of that. So anyway, no live Dave. Akshay Bhatia is your leader today at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. And then Ricky Fowler in the clubhouse with a 64. Good to see Ricky up there. Going to bring in Paul Pugmire today to talk a little golf. Where is our – oh, no. Tony must have bogeyed 18. 8 under for Tony. No. He must have birdied 18. He was 7 under. So he's tied for 17th. Man, a top 20 finish would be awesome for Tony. I know that's not an awesome spot for a guy once upon a time was the best golfer in the world.
It's been a year, Spence, not to cut in. It's been a year since he finished inside the top 10 in a PGA Tour event.
Come on, buddy. Today. Come on, Tony. Got to be better than that. Scotty Scheffler with a much better day today. He's 6 under through 17 after carding a 72 yesterday. So he's risen up to top 35. But a bad day for Scheffler yesterday. Anyway, get to some golf in just a little bit. Want to let you know that if you're into such things, Stained is coming to the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on October the 7th with Seether, Hoobastank, and Hinder. Tune into the OC show. This is my favorite read we have on the docket right now. 12:10 for your chance to score a pair of tickets. More details can be found at ESPN700sports.com. All right, if you missed Dave McMiniman, we're going to bring it back later, but it's also worth your time. Porter, give me your thoughts, because, look, I just wanted to give Dave the chance to kind of respond to some of the things that are being said out here concerning ESPN's coverage. So let's unpack this for a little bit. Let's go back and forth for a little bit, because what I will not deny, I have listened over the past 4 or 5 days. I've listened to Simmons, I've listened to Lowe, I've listened to Hoop Collective, like most of the national NBA podcasts that I typically listen to. I've just intentionally looked if they've had an episode that's basically talking about this. First of all, somebody scared Brian Windhorst straight. Okay, Brian Windhorst on 2 separate occasions. This morning, I do not watch First Take. I never will. But there's a video that was kind of circulating where Windhorst was on First Take, and he essentially said, I'm giving all of the teams the tank a pass. Okay, I'm not talking about this anymore. I'm giving all the teams a pass. And then I saw that on his pod that he typically has our buddy McMahon on, and then Tim Bontemps. It's called the Hoop Collective, which I like. And Brian's very good. He's a very smart basketball guy. He's been around for a long time. But the first 5 to 7 minutes of his pod today was almost like an apology to people in kind of like a clandestine way, where he said, I'm not ruining any more relationships by talking about this anymore, meaning talking about tanking. So also, Dave referenced a tweet that was sent out by Andy Larson, who was on our show yesterday. And the tweet was this. Let's see. We got to read both these. Okay, the tweet from Andy was this. Maybe too inside baseball, but I can guarantee you the Ryan Smith, Bobby Marks situation this week does not happen in the Justin Zanuck running the Jazz, Adrian Wojnarowski running ESPN's NBA coverage era. Zanuck and Woj were close. I can corroborate that. And then he was kind of asked to elaborate, and Andy said, essentially, Zanuck, Woj, and Marks are all close friends who have supported each other's careers throughout. I don't think Marks says the integrity thing this week if Jay-Z is fully in charge, nor do I think Smith says this if Woj is at ESPN. Andy's plugged in, smart guy. I'll let Andy's reporting stand on its own. But back to the original point, listening to all these podcasts and then watching NBA Today, and maybe this is the whole goal of this, is to get attention on a league whose regular season product just sucks most of the time. The narrative that these guys have been talking about the Jazz as kind of the lone perpetrator is true. Like that's a real thing. And so a lot of people have drawn the whole, if y'all didn't just talk about us, then the commissioner wouldn't have come down on us and pretty much us only. Obviously, Indiana got dinged as well, but wanted to give Dave a chance to kind of stand up for his side. And he basically, I thought he handled it really well.
And here's where I fall. And I agree that the big voices in a lot of the Miko ecosphere have singled out the Jazz and talked about the Jazz. Now, part of that is because of the front-facing way the Jazz have done it a little bit, right, with the trade and then the surgery, with the third quarter stuff, resting your players the rest of the game. But I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with you just being front-facing about it. It's the same reason I brought up the Whittingham stuff with the injury report, where one week there would be 0 Utah players on the injury report, and then the next there'd be like a full page of it. It was, for me, it was kind of Kyle Whittingham throwing a middle finger to not necessarily the Big 12, but the Big 12 partners in Vegas and the TV partners, the TV partners that show up to games and then complain because they don't know the players who are playing, but they didn't meet with the team. Like Kyle, I think, said something about Petros Papadakis doing it at one point, the Fox Sports stuff, right? For me, there is a realness of the organization just being upfront about it that I respect. Instead of making up a fake injury. Back soreness, knee soreness, he's out for load management. Like, we're just going to rest him the fourth quarter. For me, there's more integrity in that than there is making up an injury.
Well, Will said that Larry was on minute restriction.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bad faith argument.
That was a excuse for it, for sure. Yeah. But just on its face, like, I would rather see that, and I'd rather see those guys come out and play a little bit than not at all, right? Not the stuff that's going on in Washington, D.C. right now.
You're talking about the basketball team, right?
Yeah. Okay. Anthony Davis and Trae Young and the above.
All right.
So first off, like, there's a reason that I think the Jazz were singled out. It's the front-facing way that they were doing it. There's also a reason that the league and the big names in ESPN might be walking the same line, right? There's a partnership there. There's not only a brand partnership, but broadcast partnership where they want eyeballs on this TV show. And you're not going to necessarily get eyeballs on this TV show if it's Fee Mikhailuk instead of Larry Markkinen. So this all works in tandem. But if I'm casting blame, I don't care how hard the media guys go at it. It's on the league. It's on the league for the rules, for the incentives. It's on the league for the arbitrary nature of how they're applying the rules and how they're enforcing them. I mean, we're at the All-Star game in Los Angeles where we've heard crickets about the richest owner in pro basketball, Steve Ballmer, basically paying a fake company that doesn't exist anymore. A year later is all of a sudden gone. It's bankrupt. Its files are nowhere to be found. Pablo Torre is the only guy who can find people from that company to talk to. And the league office is mum on that. They're silent. It's crickets. When Kawhi Leonard had a $28 million deal to market for a company that did no marketing. One of the best players in the league. And he's out there playing. Steve Ballmer's out there cheering. And you want to talk about the integrity of the game? How about when the league office investigated Terry Rozier because sportsbooks told them beforehand, sportsbooks told the league office that Terry Rozier had inconsistencies in his play that brought up some warnings for them. And the league said, no wrongdoing. 2 months later, Terry Rozier was in handcuffs. Oh, and then, hey, Chauncey Billups gets arrested, and all of our main media folks are pushing, hey, he's not involved in this. It's just a poker card game. Mm-hmm. It's just a card game. But if you go and read the actual documents, Chauncey Billups is very much involved in some of the basketball stuff, too. We can send out a grand jury report. Co-conspirator 8. You can look into that one. I'm fine with going at media guys, going at teams, going at the organizations for how they portray this, because it is, I think all hypocritical. It's all over the place. But it all starts with the league, man. And it starts with the league office, who is, I think, making a lot of missteps right now. And instead of focusing on those things, hey, let's have a NBA Cup. Let's get more sponsors on the jerseys. Let's push this product more to YouTube and away from the sport that we watch and want to see competitively played. I think the target should be squarely on the league, and all of us kind of going back and forth is kind of what the league wants.
There's part of me that wonders how manufactured all this is. And I was thinking about this morning. Because, again, I come at this through the prism of watching what the Jazz are doing and 8 or 9 other teams this year, watching this for 30 years in one way, shape, or form. In some years, it's 2 teams. Some years, it's 5 teams. Some years, it's 3. Some years, it's 6. Usually doesn't happen until March or April. Maybe that's what makes this new. But I'm just like, it's Friday night. NBA All-Star Weekend starts tonight with your boy Shabuzi and the celebrity game. And I know you're going to be dialed into that.
Of course.
But like the NBA All-Star Weekend, while I was growing up, and I was lucky enough to go to maybe 9 or 10 of them, and we've had a couple here, once upon a time, it was the coolest thing out. It was a celebration of basketball and a celebration of the NBA that everybody was like pumped about. Like, and there are a lot of reasons this weekend has changed. I don't really care to get into them anymore because, like I said, my bottom line with All-Star Weekend has become this. If you don't care, I don't care. And you've told us you don't care. You're being paid millions of dollars a year to play a children's game, and you can't show up and try for the betterment of the fans. You just show up and you're lazy. You don't give a rip. You're shooting half-court shots the entire time. It's not competing. It's nothing. You don't care, so I don't care. So I don't really give a rip about this weekend anymore. But I thought Dave put it really well. The fact that we're sitting here Friday prior to NBA All-Star Weekend, by the way, in Los Angeles, where everybody always wants it to be, and every single NBA podcast and every single NBA-centric show is talking about the Utah Jazz being fined $500,000 for tanking and the Indiana Pacers being fined $100,000 for tanking, and talking about how a third of your league currently does not approach competition with integrity and takes it seriously. A third of your teams, 10 teams right now, 10 teams. Now, the approaches are all different, okay? Washington trades for Anthony Davis and Trae Young and was like, oh, they're still hurt. Well, okay, maybe AD's still banged up. Trae's not. He was cleared to play prior to the trade. They're not playing the guys they traded for. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is manipulating injuries, which is really the smartest way to do it because there are enough smoke screens you can put up that people are afraid to approach, right? Like, oh, are you going to go call a team doctor a liar? Oh, Jaren Jackson Jr. has a growth. He doesn't need it taken off. So, like, there are ways you can create false narratives and bad faith arguments where there's enough kind of underlying truth to it, even though it's not entirely true and somewhat lacking integrity that you can present. Like Will saying Lowry's on a minute restriction. Stop it, And if you're buying that, I got a plot of land, I don't know, somewhere where land isn't valuable. I wasn't planning on using that analogy just then. There are enough smoke screens and enough false narratives that have bits and pieces of partial truths that the injury thing is really the way to go. Because we talked about the Spurs in 96, 97. Remember, David Robinson, unbelievably talented, physical, dominant center, known for showing up, playing hard every night, always wanted to play 82, okay? You look at David Robinson's splits, 82 games, 82 games, 82 games. There was one 68-game year, then 82 games, 82 games. 1996, 1997, 6 games played. Okay? Now, if you're a Spurs apologist, you'll say, well, he was hurt. He had a bad back. But most everybody around the league back then was like, okay, the injury was supposed to keep him out for like 6 weeks, and you're not playing him all year. Oh, yeah, there's a senior at Wake Forest named Tim Duncan. Oh, okay, yeah, David Robinson does have a bad back, air quotes. That's the way to do it, right? And so Jaren Jackson Jr., of course, you have look, I am a cancer survivor. I had a brain tumor removed from my skull. Okay, it was cancerous. So if you have a growth that needs to be removed, please do that. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, like, but Jaren Jackson Jr. in 49 minutes playing pro basketball looked amazing for Utah. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if the Jazz were fighting for like home court advantage in the playoffs, Jaren Jackson Jr. would have waited until the offseason to have his knee surgery. Okay. So these are the types of things that have always been kind of understood. And, you know, the like unwritten rules, I always say, well, write them down so we know. But like it's kind of been the understanding in the ecosystem of the NBA that teams are going to go about their business to lose games intentionally in order to hold on to their draft pick. So whether it's David Robinson's injury, whether it's Oklahoma City on 2 different occasions manipulating lineups and sitting players out with injuries, or calling up G League players so they can get Josh Giddey and Chet Holmgren because they already had Shea and obviously have drafted really well. Toronto last year intentionally sitting Scotty Barnes in the 4th quarter so they could hold on to their draft asset. Like, this stuff has always happened. So I've just been thinking about this morning, listening to these pods, watching these shows, and wondering why that an issue that's been understood that it's part of the ecosystem, by the way, and has basically been the deal for 30 years. Why are people paying attention now? And part of me does believe that there is a little bit of manufactured outrage over this because what are the topics? Okay. What's interesting about NBA basketball right now? There's some things like, if you dig in, the Wembanyama stuff is fascinating. I've never seen anything like it. You know, Cooper Flag is real. We probably should be talking more about what LeBron James is doing at the age of 41. The best point guard of this generation, Chris Paul, it's not even close. Don't. Just retired after 21 years. There are other things to get into, but you have a league right now where 1/3 of your teams every night are unserious about competing, and then a good portion of the other teams that are still relevant have players that don't want to play. So is this a manufactured thing to bring some attention to a league that, quite frankly, during the regular season, for a lot of folks that are sports fans, it doesn't even resonate with them? There might be a little bit of that. All right, finally this before we catch a break. It's kind of pointless to bring up because there's no way that you'll ever know. And I don't know Adam Silver the way I knew David Stern. I was lucky enough to know David Stern well. Had him on my radio show and podcast multiple times. I don't think this is a problem on the magnitude that it is today if David Stern is still a commissioner. And I just have to wonder, because I can tell you this, and I can underscore it and put it in ink. And the owners, they didn't just respect David Stern. A lot of them were scared of him. A lot of owners were scared of David Stern because he would come down hard and find coaches. He fined Van Gundy $250K when Jeff was the coach of the Knicks for making some disparaging comments about the refs. Mark Cuban was fined over and over and over, and Mark got in line really quickly. It's interesting watching Ryan decide to die on this hill with social media and take his sword out and go at the commissioner publicly, because Mark Cuban tried to do the same. And I can tell you, I know this happened. David Stern called a meeting with Mark and the rest of the board of governors and dressed him down in front of his peers. And Mark eventually stepped in line. He was always the owner that wanted to be like sitting next to the team and giving high fives to players and coaches, because these owners, most of them never made a team. So their only way to be friends with athletes and coaches is buy their way into their presence, because otherwise they would never be like anywhere near them. So Mark always wanted to be the guy who was never the athlete, wanted to be close to athletes, so he's rich and he's going to buy his way into friendships. But as far as his public criticism of the NBA, did you notice how quiet it got after the course of a couple of years when he was very loud about things he wasn't happy about? It's because David Stern called him in and said, that's enough. He fined him a bunch of times. When a guy is worth that much money, the fines at some point, you know, I will say this, no matter how much money you have, $500,000 is a lot of money. I mean, I know Ryan's got a lot of money, but $500K, that's a lot of money. That's a big fine. Okay. So I'm sure Ryan's not thrilled about that. But I just wonder what this would look like if Adam Silver was a little bit more willing to engage in a way that owners understand who's in charge. Because like I said, somebody said something to me a number of years ago about the NBA. I said, look, you never forget that this is a corporation. And the corporation is the corporation of the NBA, and the teams are the entities. So as much as you want to operate your own thing in your own space, you have to you have to toe the line and in a way kiss the ring because you are the property of the National Basketball Association. So we'll see, interesting choice by Ryan. We'll see what happens. I would imagine he's received a couple of calls from the commissioner. All right, we will talk a little golf. Tony Finau playing some good golf today. We'll give you an update on the PGA Tour leaderboard. Paul Pugmire joins us. We're going to do a little a little football today with Andy Phillips and Andrew Bernstein later on. So busy show rest of the way. Happy Friday. Keep it here on ESPN 700. AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am going on right now. We'll give you a leaderboard update coming up in just a little bit, courtesy of our friends at You Into Golf. Tony Finau playing some good golf this weekend. See if he can keep it rolling. Next guest joins us on a weekly basis to talk PGA Tour and whatever else is going on in the world of golf. He is Paul Pugmire on a Friday afternoon. Paul, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
Doing great, Spence. Hope you are too.
All good here. So always like to start with a little education here. So the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, Spyglass Hill, and then Pebble Beach Golf Links. At least that's what I have in front of me. Tell us about the tournament, Paul. What do we need to know?
It is an old traditional tournament on the PGA Tour. They've been doing it for, 60 years probably. And the format is unique. It is concurrently a team event and an individual event. The teams are made up of one touring pro, and then an amateur partner, and they play in a net best ball. And then the individual event is for the tour pros, and they're playing their ball down and playing it, 72 holes of stroke play with a cut, this kind of a standard tournament format, but they're doing that just side by side, right along with their amateur partners as well. And it's on one of the great golf courses in the world, one of the top 5 courses by any measurement, by any list every year. And it's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of tradition. It's always one of the favorite stops on the PGA Tour.
2 courses? Am I seeing they play on 2 separate courses? Yeah. Okay. So what does that what does that look like? Do they alternate just daily?
Alternate on the first 2 rounds on Thursday and Friday, and then they make the cut. And because the field is so big with the amateurs, you need 2 courses to carry everybody, make the cut, and then everybody moves over to Pebble for the weekend.
Ah, I see. Okay. Well, I referenced Tony. Okay, Porter, I was unaware of this. It's been an entire calendar year since Tony had a top 10 finish.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's going to have a top 10 finish, but he is in the top 20. An unbelievable first round and came back down to earth, was even today with 72, but he's 8 under, which does put him in the top 20 next to Rory McIlroy, Jake Knapp, Colin Morikawa is right there as well. So some good golfers kind of in that stratosphere. Tell us, based off of what you know about Tony's game and this golf course, what are reasonable expectations over the weekend?
Yeah, Tony has not demonstrated yet this year that he can put together good rounds. So his 64 was at Spyglass. He moved over to Pebble today and shot 72. Now, as you noted, he's firmly making the weekend, and boy, that's great. He's missed a couple of cuts this year already, but he has not consistently been able to put rounds together yet, like you need to do to win on the PGA Tour. He's nearly had himself a top 10 2-3 weeks ago at the FedEx down in Palm Springs. He finished T11 there after a really strong Sunday round. But it's been a year since the top 10 for him. He's fallen down to the top 50 in the official World Golf Rankings and trying to play his way back.
Tell me what you've seen from Tony, because once upon a time, was not just considered one of the better golfers in the world, but considered like a rising star that could win majors. I'm not saying he still can't, but the conversation around him I always find interesting. A lot of it involves, well, should he have his family with him? And it's like, dude, just let the man do what he wants to do, and let's hone in on what's going on with the game. But like when he's cooking, Paul, what does he do? And what have you seen that maybe has led to some struggles after a really strong start to a PGA Tour career?
Tony also always has been a really superb, high-end, top-shelf striker of the golf ball. And that's the one thing that has really marked him. He has long levers. He's very athletic. He's tall. He's strong. And so he only needs to swing at 70 or 80%, and he still is one of the longest players on tour, just swinging easy like that. His struggle point has been his putting for a long time. And you can see this in the way he experiments with different putters, with different grips. He is constantly searching, and I don't think has found his place where he really feels comfortable with a putter. He's got a new putter in play this week, case in point, and he is still searching for that. His grip is back to a more traditional grip right now. He's been all over the board with different grips, but that has been the thing that has really stood in the way. Now, having said that, we've talked about this a little bit. He was definitely hurt at the end of last year. He had surgery on his foot over the winter. I saw him a few weeks ago at Riverside, and he was noticeably limping, although in very good spirits, and said he was feeling good. I think, and what it looks to me, especially when you see a guy shooting 64-72, part of what that tells you is something's not fully right with his body, that they just can't back up a good round with a good round. So I'm not certain that Tony's body is fully healed from his surgery.
Well, let's give some love to the guys that are leading the way. And Akshay Bhatia has been kind of one of those rising stars now, right, for a few years, who's got a lot of game and he was a Netflix guy with the full swing stuff. So he's kind of one of these guys whose star has really risen over the past few years. And he's your leader at 15 under with a 65 yesterday and a 64 today. What do you make of that, Paul?
First of all, we need to know a little bit about Akshay. In many ways, he is so similar and so parallel to Tony Finau. Grows up as a minority, only with no traditional family connection to the game or anything, but he finds it and finds that he has a talent. And he's got a strong family structure around him, and everybody sacrifices so he can develop it. Like Tony, he turns pro right out of high school and just skips all the college stuff. Like Tony, he made his first splash on the big break, these alternate made for TV kind of things, and then has had to work his way through the pro game. Akshay did win a Korn Ferry Tour event kind of early on, got his way onto the Pro Tour. He's a lanky kid, skinny as a rail, but has, again, levers and really uses them. He's a tall, slender guy. And he is absolutely an up-and-comer. It's not a real big surprise to see him in this position. He's won twice on the PGA Tour already, and can't wait to see how he handles the weekend, because there's some big names breathing down his neck.
Let me ask you about let's see. So last week, Chris Gotterup won the tournament last week. It was the what did he win last week?
Management at Phoenix.
Oh, that's right, the Waste Management, and it was a playoff over Matsuyama, if I remember correctly. That's right. Yeah, he won in a playoff. It's just one of these names where you kind of hear. You don't really know much about him, and he wins a week ago, and he's very much in the mix this week. So what do you make of kind of this meteoric rise? Tell us about Chris Gotterup.
It's no surprise at all. He was a dominant college player. He won the Haskins Award, which is the equivalent of a Heisman Trophy for golf. Played on a national championship Oklahoma team. He moved quickly through the developmental ranks, the Korn Ferry and all that, got himself on the Pro Tour. He's won 4 times now in the last 2 years, we'll call it. And interestingly, in those last 2 years, he is on the list of most wins in the last 2-year period. Now, obviously, Scotty Scheffler is just miles in front of everybody. But then second, third, and fourth are names like Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose. And there's Chris Gotterup in that mix. He is very powerful. He's one of these guys with a linebacker body, but he's got soft hands, and he's got a lot of game, an awfully lot of game. I think he has potential to be a star that sticks on the PGA Tour.
Couple wins already this year, so pretty impressive stuff. So Ricky Fowler carded a 68 yesterday and a 66 yesterday and a 64 today. So he's in second place. He's right behind Akshay, 1 stroke back. And I always find stories like this interesting. Whether it's a Jordan Spieth who's in the mix this weekend, which is fun to see, And, fringe golf fans always do like, who's the next Tiger? Who's the next dominant player? And for a minute, it looked like it would be Spieth, like forever. It was for a few years, and it hasn't been for quite some time. And it felt like for a minute, maybe Ricky was kind of in that conversation, or maybe he was, known more as like a celebrity golfer instead of like a great golfer. But he's right there in the mix. He's one shot back. What do you make of that?
Ricky had one really great year where he had a top 5 in every major. Ricky has won a Players and won it in real dramatic fashion because it involved a playoff, and he had to play 17 4 times, and he stuck it to 3 feet on that terribly difficult and dangerous right front pin placement on 17 at Sawgrass. So Ricky has top level elite cachet, but you are completely correct. He is more of a celebrity than he is an accomplished golfer. He hasn't won a major yet. He's won, I'm going to say 5 times. I'll be close on the PGA Tour. But he hasn't really cracked through into that elite PGA Tour status yet. It's just fun to see Ricky doing well. Ricky, he always has a great time on the golf course. You can tell that he just loves being there, and that joy is visible and it translates. And I'm in the camp of just loving to see Ricky Fowler play well because I want to see Ricky Fowler play.
For sure. All right. Before we move off the tournament that's going on in front of us now, the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, to get to some other local stories and some stuff like that. I got to ask you, as I do every week when you join us when there's a tournament going on, the cut line as far as where you would tell us, okay, these are the guys that can actually win the thing now that more or less 2 rounds are behind us.
Yeah, so we generally don't want to go more than 5 shots out after 36 holes because it's just too much headwind to overcome. So we've got Batia at 15, so go down to 10, and you look at the names that are in there, and that grabs you Chris Gotterup's at 9. I'm going to come back to him in a minute, but it grabs you Matsuyama, Fitzpatrick, and what I'm saying there is major championship winners. It also gets you Tom Hoagie, who has won this event on this golf course. Those are names you've got to pay attention to. I do think that the names right at the top of the leaderboard, Ricky Fowler, Ryo Hisatsune from Japan, who was in the mix last week at Phoenix, and then, of course, Sam Burns, who Ryder Cupper, real strong player. Out of all those, the one that I like the best is Sam Burns. I think when Burns gets it going, he can really light it up and keep it lit. And so he's one that really you should keep an eye on going into the weekend. I do want to go past my normal 5-shot fence here because if you go just 1 shot deeper, here are some names you start to get. You get Chris Gotterup, Tommy Fleetwood, Xander Schauffele, Jordan Spieth, Jake Knapp, Russell Henley, Nick Taylor. These are all proven winners. These guys, you should keep an eye on those as well. The group at T12 is a really, really strong group. They're 6 shots back.
It's a hell of a leaderboard. There's no doubt about that. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to be tuned in to see how it plays out. Charlie Woods has elected to play his college golf at Florida State. And I didn't know this, but he has shot up to 21st in the American Junior Golf Association rankings. Last I checked, he was in like the 600s. Well, so what has happened? What is Tiger's boy kind of figured out as you've been watching his growth?
It's funny you would say as I've been watching his growth, because the first thing I'd say is the main thing I've noticed is that he's settling into a bigger, stronger body, and he has always been so fundamentally sound. Here's a shock. Who was he taught by? Oh yeah, Tiger Woods. Mm-hmm. But ultimately that is something that I know the college coaches were looking at. He's playing in one of the top golf programs in the country. He committed to it, and everybody there at Florida is happy that they've got Tiger Woods now connected to their program. But that's not why Charlie got this offer to play at Florida. He had offers from a dozen other top colleges. It's because they see in him really sound, fundamentally secure golf swing. They see that he's growing into being a very strong young man with a very athletic body. And he is, as you said, he's now in the top 20 of junior players in the nation. His ceiling is high, and he's advancing in the game at a very quick rate. His trajectory is steep. I can't wait to see what he does. I think he has staggering, immense pressure on him. Holy cow. Let's say he has a great career. Let's say he has a Hall of Fame career with 15 PGA Tour victories and 2 or 3 majors. That can get you in the Hall of Fame. He will always not be his dad. I think he is in such a terribly difficult situation, and he handles it really, really well. A very young guy, very savvy. I'm impressed with him and cheering for him.
As a wise man once told me when I was a younger person, Spence, you need to come to one realization, and that is nobody cheers for the son of a famous father. And I said, all right. Thanks, pal. Appreciate that. Hey, tell me about Trey Jones, who's the coach at Florida State. Looks like he's coached Brooks Koepka and Daniel Berger. So obviously Tiger's going to have his pause, dare I say, see what I did there on this decision. And I would imagine he wants to make sure Charlie's playing for a college coach that is best for his growth. Fair to say, yeah?
Yeah, totally. And Trey Jones, as you noted, they have a great program there. They've got a great history, and they've kicked out they've moved out some really nice players, really good players, and none of that happens by accident. And I am certain that when Charlie and Tiger were talking privately, they were talking about the coach, and that this is a big part of the decision that ultimately was Charlie's and that ultimately he made. But he would have made that decision in consultation with his dad, and they absolutely would have been considering the coach. Trey Jones is one of the top college coaches in the nation. He's got years of experience and years of very high level of performance. This was a good match for both Jones in the college and for Charlie Woods.
All right, before we get to the local stuff, next week we've got the Genesis Invitational at the Riviera Country Club in California. This is kind of the California swing, right, for the PGA Tour. And it's another, I think it's an elevated event, right, Paul? The purse is $20 million. So I'd imagine the field's going to be awesome. Tell us about the Genesis Invitational before we move over to some local stuff.
Well, first of all, it's Riviera, for crying out loud. This is one of the, again, I mean, they're going from Pebble to Riv. Riviera is one of the great golf courses in the world. Immense history and tradition. This is a course, it is so interesting how frequently great courses have a player that over time will establish a dominant record there. For Riviera, it was Ben Hogan. Just seemed to go to Riviera and just year after year rack up wins, rack up high finishes. It is referred to as colloquially as Hogan's Alley because of all that. An incredibly beautiful, incredibly difficult, and strategically advanced golf course. It is one of the great golf courses in the world, and the number 10 hole is absolutely, bar none, the greatest short par 4 in the world. Just if you just watch nothing but number 10 at Riviera, you will see great golf. But it's an elevated event, like you say, because it's a combination of hosted by Tiger Woods, and it's at Riviera. It has to be an elevated event.
All right, moving over to the latest on the local golf scene. We need to start with a week from today. You and I are hanging out, Paul, and I will not be able to sleep. I feel it's been a long time since I've felt like a kid at Christmas. Like on Christmas Eve, you get older, you don't get excited about things like you used to. I will be counting down the days until you and I are hanging out next Friday morning. Tell our listeners what we got going on.
Well, guys, Spencer's going to get a club fitting. Spencer's getting new clubs. Good on you, man. And we're going to do a fitting with Jordan Bloxham at the Tee Box in Centerville. Jordan is one of the best fitting experts in the state. We're going to go up to the Centerville Tee Box, and we also will mic up Jordan and Spencer and do a podcast of what Spencer's club fitting experience is like. It will be very interesting and something that I think a lot of people really should listen to and learn about getting fit for clubs. It matters to get fit for the right clubs for you.
I wanted you to educate us as to why and what this process looks like, because I've really never gone through it comprehensively. I've just done a little bit of it here or there, so I'm excited to actually do it start to finish. What is this process? Why is it important, and how can it help somebody's game?
Important because the best analogy is shoes. You get shoes that fit you, right? You don't wear somebody else's hand-me-downs. You don't get shoes just because they look good or because somebody else has them. You get shoes that fit you. It matters in that way. And we have talked about how different swing characteristics are different. We have talked about how different bodies are different and how they move the club differently. So you want to get a club that fits into the characteristics that you bring to the game with your own way of doing things. And it is so much easier to fit a club to your way of doing things than it is to try to change your way to fit clubs. And so just like having shoes that fit you, you need clubs that will fit you as well. And the process is actually not too dissimilar from finding shoes that fit you. You start with a generalized size, and then you try some on, and it's trial and error. And the club fitting process involves some trial and error, where you hit this and you hit that, and then you change the shaft and you try it this way, all the while taking measurements on a launch monitor for different parameters like contact quality, the strike quality, and the launch angle and the spin rate and things like that. And you're able, through trial and error, to dial into, okay, this setup, this head, this shaft, set up in this way will give you the best results for your body and your motion.
I cannot wait, man. I'm so excited. Hey, we buried the lead. I owe you a congratulations. I'm just seeing on your first of all, I did not know Wes Ruff had an award that was named after him, but that's not the lead. Paul, as you were given the Wesley Ruff Golf Citizen of the Year Award, right? I'm just seeing this. So congratulations. Tell us about it.
Thank you so much. I'm deeply honored and grateful for this. It's an award given by the Utah Section PGA. And mostly their awards go, as they should, to their members, the golf professionals around the state. But there's a couple of awards they give to people who support the game and who are involved in it, who are not golf professionals. And I'm deeply honored that this year I've been given that award, and I'm quite grateful for it.
All right. Well, give us the latest on the local golf scene and let us know what's coming up on the show tomorrow.
So the awards dinner that was held this last week, where those awards from the Utah section were given out, is actually just a part of the annual meetings and the annual convention, if you will, of the Utah PGA. We're going to be doing a lot on the radio show tomorrow on Utah Golf Radio about that. We're going to be talking about a new section member mentoring program with Cam Katroba from Glen Wild. We will talk with Hayden Bance and Allie Mulhall, who won the tournament they played for the men and the women's side. And we will be speaking with Devin DeLynn from the Utah section about a new Utah PGA Hall of Fame.
Great stuff, Paul. Appreciate the time, buddy. Have a good weekend, and we'll chat next week.
Thank you so much. All
right, Paul Pugmire, Utah Golf Radio. You can check that out tomorrow morning on our radio station. Time now for the Uinta Golf PGA Tour update. You can join Uinta Golf for the President's Day weekend sale. It's going on right now. I got to stop by after the show, actually. Save 25% on all clearance apparel, 20% on clearance bags and shoes, and get a Prior Gen Callaway TaylorMade and Bridgestone balls for just $44.99 a dozen. Swing into Uinta Golf, trusted by golfers since 1971 and home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee. Uinta Golf, get there. Rio Hisastune has actually tied Akshay Bhatia for the lead. He must have birdied 17 and 18. They're both at 15 under par. Ricky Fowler's at 14 under par. He's in the clubhouse in second. Sam Burns is through 17, so he's got another hole to play. He's 13 under. That's good for fourth. Paul said he likes Sam's chances to win. Minwoo Lee at 12 under par. He's in the clubhouse with a 65 on his card. Tom Hoagie and Sepp Straka at 11 under par. Then it's Hideki Matsuyama, Matt Fitzpatrick, Patrick Rogers, Keegan Bradley, Jacob Bridgman, and Nick Taylor all at 10 under par. And because Paul told us to watch out for the players that are also 9 under, I'll read you that list. It's Bud Colley, Chris Goddard, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood, Jordan Spieth, Jake Knapp, Russell Henley, and Harris. Nope, Harris is at 8 under. Okay, so that's the list of the golfers Paul said still have a chance to win the thing. It's about 30 players thereabouts. Tony Finau, where are you at? What happened to Tony? He was top. Oh, there he is. Okay, Tony's in the clubhouse, carding a 72 today after a 64 yesterday. So he's at 8 under. He has a chance to maybe get a top 20 finish, which would be good. Porter, you said you've got a Tony Finau stat. Hit me with it.
It just kind of caught my attention as we were talking about Tony as he, gets older. There was a time, Spence, when it felt like, when was he going to win a major?
For
right?
sure, yeah.
Like he was that good. He was a top 5, top 10 golfer for quite some time. Never got over the hump. Well, now we're at a point where not only when or if, but like it'd be a kind of an upset if he were to win a major, because Tony is now 36 years old. Post-war golfers to win a first major, not just win a major. We know Tiger and Phil and those guys have won them at old age. But to win their first major at 36 or older, Stuart Sink, Y.E. Yang, Angel Cabrera, and my old boss, Mark O'Meara. Those are the only ones. Post-war, before 1950s, there was a bunch of old crummy dudes that were like the only professional golfers. But yeah. So the modern era, Tony would join a list of only like 5 guys to ever do it at 36 or older.
Oh, that's a bummer. I mean, the good news is he just signed with the Jordan brand, and he's going to be worth $250 million when he retires, I guess. But I just would love to see Tony win a major. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And hey, they got the Tiger Golf League, the
TGL,
the indoor thing too.
Is Tony part of that?
Yeah, he was playing it last week.
By the way, you need to do a better job. Wes Ruff has an award named after him. Why don't I have an award named after me? You're my producer. You're supposed to make this happen.
And I just mentioned a guy to you in his 40s.
Yeah.
That won a major for the first time at that age. You can get on it.
Well,
you're still in your 40s.
Why does Wes Ruff? I love Wes Ruff, but he's got an award named after him. I need an award named after me.
What would your award be?
I'm going to think about that because the jokes are going to come flying in. Before we sign off at 6 o'clock, we have 2 hours left in the show. We'll come up with an award, but I guess there's a Wes Ruff Golf Citizen of the Year in our state, and Paul Pugmire won it. Happy for my friend Paul. Juiced to have this fitting coming up with Jordan Bloxham in Centerville next week and to get some new sticks. Excited about that. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We will switch gears. Andrew Bernstein is going to join us. There's a chance, if there's an old school sports photo that you love, that Andrew took it. I mean, he is a titan in his industry. We'll do some football later on with Andy Phillips. We'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the show, reset, and say goodnight at 6 on a Friday afternoon. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Got Andy Phillips on the program today. I don't know how many people in the world are both pro skiers and high-level football players. Andy is very much one of one. So we'll talk some college and pro football with our buddy Andy today. Dave McMiniman from ESPN, 5 o'clock hour before we say goodnight at 6. It's been a minute since we had our next guest on the show, but I always appreciate the conversation. As I said earlier, if there's a sports picture that has been taken over the past 40 years that you love, it may have been taken by our next guest, and it's always fun to welcome in Andrew Bernstein on the show on a Friday afternoon. Happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Spence. How are you, man? Great to be back with you.
We're good. We're good out here. I want to start. Let's not bury the lead. So you and Vanessa Bryant, the widow of course, the great Kobe Bryant, have released a book called Mamba and Mambacita Forever. Tell us about this. I want to know all of it. Origin story, the process. How did this all come about, Andrew?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. As we know, tragically, we lost Kobe and Gigi January 26, 2020, along with some other folks that were in that tragic helicopter crash. And then we all went into COVID, and lockdown. And as that was happening, murals were starting to go up all over the world, not just in L.A., but in different parts of the world of Kobe and Gigi. And there was no call to action. There was nothing put out on X or Twitter or Instagram. It just was this outpouring of creative love that simultaneously happened. And I saw that Vanessa, once we were able to get out of our homes and walk around and sort of socialize a little bit, she was going to visit some of these murals, the ones near her where she lives, some of them in South L.A. She started incorporating murals into courts that she was dedicating for the Mamba and Mambacita Foundation. So I reached out and I just said, hey, I'm seeing you paying a lot of respect to these murals. How do you want to document them? I was thinking about possibly a documentary, and she said, well, I really would like to memorialize these these murals in a book. I would really love to have a book that really was a comprehensive collection of these murals. So we started that journey. It was I think we started in September of 2021. The book was quite a logistical exercise, to say the least, because, like I said, these murals are on every continent except Antarctica. So we had to contact the muralists. We had to send photographers. And Vanessa, she edited the over 600 murals down to 116 that she personally picked, and those are represented in this book. It's a beautiful visual tribute to Kobe and Gigi through the incredible art of muralists. So, I hope that people in your area, I don't know if there are murals where you are, but folks can get this book. They can find these murals, go see them when they're traveling. And again, murals don't last forever. They're part of the art world, like street art, that they're up for a while and then they get weathered, or somebody knocks a building down, or they build something next to it, or whatever. And she wanted them memorialized in this fashion. So very, very proud of that book. My Legends of Sport company produced it, and I served as director of photography. So it was a true labor of love and dedication and tribute.
And for context, Andrew, I think it's always important for listeners that may not have heard you on the show before, listen to the podcast. I've got your podcast pulled up. Your guest list is like insane, so we'll get people over there before we set you loose. But you very much were friends with Kobe. I mean, he was on your podcast. You got to know him. The photographer work that you do, Lakers, Clippers, NBA wide, as I've talked about, as I've teased you all day long. You weren't a wallflower who was just kind of seeing Kobe do his thing. You were able to get to know him very well. That's fair to say, yes?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was already 13 or 14 years in the league, working for the NBA and the Lakers, when this 17-year-old kind of wild-eyed rookie showed up at training camp in 1996. And most of us in L.A., and you should ask Dave McMiniman this later when you talk to him, most of us in L.A. didn't really know about this kid. I mean, he, came out of suburban Philadelphia, very well known in the East Coast, but I don't want to say unknown, but he was not a household name when he came to the Lakers. So there's a lot of curiosity, but from day one, he and I bonded. I was 20 years older than him, and I saw something in him, a little chip on the shoulder, a little moxie, that I had when I was his age. And we, it was a gift for 20 years to have this guy in front of my lens for 20 years. I don't think we'll ever see another athlete play for any professional team in the United States for 20 years ever again. And I was there for every significant moment, every championship, MVPs, Olympics, of course, when he became a husband and a father. And it was a wonderful friendship, but it was an incredible working relationship, too, that he respected me as much as I respected him. He pushed me because I wanted to kind of match his relentless pursuit of greatness every single game, quite frankly. And he expected that from people around him. And he really welcomed only a few people into his inner circle, and was very proud to be one of those people. And when it became time to do our book together, The Mamba Mentality, I don't think I'll ever be involved in a project again like that, to sit down with him and really chronicle his career through his words and my photos. So it was a beautiful experience to know him. I miss him every day. I actually helped to commission a mural right outside my office so I can literally say hello to him in mural form every single day when I go to my office. And again, it was a gift to have him in front of my lens.
The human experience is so interesting for so many different reasons, and part of it, in my opinion, that's always been fascinating to me is why we wait until somebody is gone to remember them the way that we should have treated them when they were alive, right? It's really weird in that way, and I certainly didn't know Kobe the way you did. My senior year in high school, Kobe was a rookie with the Lakers, and they were actually in town to play the Jazz in that playoff series where Kobe put up a bunch of air balls, and we saw him at the hotel, and I was with a bunch of my teammates, and we had just won the state championship, which, of course, doesn't mean anything to a pro basketball player. But we were also – it was a debate, like, who's going to go up and tell him that we're here as a team and we just won state? And so it was me, of course, because I'm the loudmouth. And he could not have been nicer. He was, like, complimentary. He took time out of his schedule to, like, talk to us high school idiots. So I didn't know him like you did. But back to the point about the impact that he has seemed to have in death – that I don't know that he could have had in life. And I know that sounds weird, but, the murals going up all over the world and the way that people remember him, like, how does that kind of resonate with you, Andrew?
Well, Kobe transcended sports, not just basketball, but sports. I think all of us who knew him and didn't know him and were just fans, all we could do is just marvel at his work ethic and how hard he worked to become as great as he was, and would never stop this really relentless pursuit of being great. And of course, he was a girl dad, and all of us who are dads and have daughters, and I mean, how could you not relate and love this guy, and how much he loved his girls, and the path that Gigi was on, and just the added layers of, as the tragedy, there's just, incomprehensible that this father and daughter are gone. And the potential she had just at the beginning of her journey, to see the players of today quoting him and talking about the Mamba mentality, and a lot of these guys never saw him play. They were too young. Maybe they weren't even born yet. I don't know, but it's pretty amazing. His legacy will live on, and I was just humbled and thrilled and just so enamored with him every time I saw him play. I just couldn't believe that I was put in a place where, and I earned the ability to be there to document this guy's career, but also to know him as a person. And when he became a father, I was already a father. We had a few chats on team planes and stuff, because he was learning as he went, I'm a girl dad too. I have a son, 3 daughters, so we bonded over that as well. But it's hard to put into words what he's meant to everyone. I think everybody has their own opinion. When we did the murals book, the muralists all spoke so eloquently about wanting to express their love, but also their grief, their appreciation, their longing, their sort of sense of wanting to express all of that through their art. And I think Vanessa was very touched by that. And that's why I think one of the reasons why she wanted to do the book, to pay tribute in this manner to this beautiful art form.
I want to move over to a different Laker, and I find the conversation regarding LeBron pretty fascinating. Andrew, I came up in the NBA era where Michael was our guy, MJ was the guy. And, even I can only speak with my own experience. And my experience, as you know, is steeped in two teams, the Knicks and the Jazz. The two teams that Mike may have ripped,
right.
the rings off of our fingers more often than we ever wanted to. But there was something about Michael. And look, I don't know if this is like a social media era where we didn't have it when Mike was around, because I'm sure there were plenty of things that Mike did that nobody knew about, that if it was 24/7 inundation of information, the narrative could have been different. I'll bottom line this, then give you the space, because I would imagine with your Laker gig, you've been able to get to know LeBron. I just feel like Michael is held in an area of reverence that LeBron will never, ever be able to obtain. Just give me your thoughts on that.
It's interesting. I don't know. I think time will tell. Of course, LeBron has played for a few teams. Michael only played for the Bulls, and then, of course, he ended his career at the Wizards, but all of us really only remember him on the Bulls, quite honestly. Kobe played 20 years with the Lakers. Kareem only played for two teams and probably best known for his Laker days. Magic, Worthy, all these guys only played for one team, Larry Bird. So maybe that has something to do with it. The fact that LeBron did bring a championship to L.A., he'll always be remembered for that. Look what he's doing in year 23. It's just mind-blowing. I went to a game last week, and I could not believe that this guy at his age is still doing it at the level that he's doing it. And, to see him over there sitting with his son on the bench, that, as a dad, it kind of gives you a little goosebumps, because how wonderful is that as an experience, as a person, as a father. And I don't know. I think legacy is defined well after retirement. If you relate it to my photos, for example, some of my photos, were memorable in the moment, but they have sort of acquired an iconic sort of history because time has gone by. Michael Jordan won his first championship holding the trophy in 1991, and he's crying, and his dad is next to him. And, it was a very important photo in the moment, but none of us knew he had 5 more championships in him, and that moment and that photo would take on the significance that it did. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful I was in that position, that I had worked hard to earn that position, to be there, to take that photo as well as other ones. And, when LeBron broke Kareem's record, this is an interesting little sidebar, but when LeBron broke Kareem's scoring record, I was the only media member in the room in Crypto.com Arena who had been there and documented Kareem breaking Wilt Chamberlain's record 36 years before that. and I told that to LeBron, and he just looked at me like, man, you are so old I can't even think about it. It was just funny. But, for me as a photographer, using a Phil Jackson sort of statement, it was a real full circle moment for me. And back then, when I think it was 84, when Kareem broke Wilt's record, nobody had phones, of course. Nobody had cell phones. You didn't bring a camera. But then you look at the photo of LeBron breaking Kareem's record, every single person in the background is holding up their cell phone, because it's not enough just to be there and experience it. You have to kind of prove that you were there, which is kind of cool. But, I got teenagers, and I'm like, put the phone down and just enjoy being in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just kind of a funny sidebar to that photo. But his legacy as one of the greats of all time. I mean, I think it'll always be there, and he's showing that every single night when he suits it up now in year 23.
Andrew, I know you know this, but sometimes truth is simply stranger than fiction. So for our listeners' context, Andrew is speaking about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar breaking Wilt Chamberlain's all-time scoring record, which he did against the Utah Jazz in Las Vegas.
Exactly.
And I was not there. I was young. My father was in attendance. But once upon a time, in order to try to supplement some financial issues, the Jazz played, I think, 10 to 12 home games in Las Vegas in the 80s. And Kareem broke the record hitting the sky hook over Big Mark, who you actually had on your podcast, didn't you?
Oh,
Mark
I love
Eaton.
Mark Eaton so much. Miss that guy.
Yep.
And, I'm still very, very good friends with Terry, his wife. I remember Mark when he played for UCLA. He was on my podcast. He was so gracious to come on when he released his book. I remember that moment, and I can picture it right now. Kareem faked a little bit, went baseline, and threw the skyhook over. What was Mark, 7-4?
7-4, yep, 7-4,
ridiculous.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But, but that Las Vegas reference is like, when Wilt scored 100 points, he did it in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And there wasn't even a photographer in the building to record the actual moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the PR guy for the Sixers, I think he was playing for, who actually took the picture of him holding up the 100 on a piece of paper to prove that it actually happened.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, where every single person in the arena could document the game. It's kind of mind-blowing how technology has moved forward.
What and it might be because I was looking at this. As far as the pictures you think you're most remembered for, I mean the MJ crying holding the trophy might be hard to beat that one, but there's so many options. So give me a few. Like what you believe to be the outside looking in views your most iconic shots.
Well, I always, that's a great question. And I get asked that, what's your favorite photo? And I always say, I have 4 kids, so I can't really pick one of them. But, on any given day, I might like one of them more than the others. But that's, as a parent, probably you can relate. But that photo, if I'm remembered for one photo, I hope it's that one of Michael holding his first trophy. It's just such an incredible moment in time in NBA history. Magic boxing out Bird in the 97 finals. That's right up there. I had a photo I took of Kobe kind of ensconced in ice in the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
I call it Kobe on ice. Mm-hmm. In black and white when I was working on the book with Phil Jackson in 2009-10. LeBron breaking Kareem's record. I mean, it wasn't like technically the greatest photo ever taken, but as a historical landmark in the history of the league, it's an important photo. There was a photo I shot on a remote camera only a couple of weeks after Kobe's death when, you might remember when LeBron went up and did this crazy dunk with his legs kind of scissor, crossed, and he's in midair. And it was shot with the camera from an angle that I actually invented. I was very proud that photo really was produced by that camera. The camera was embedded into the stanchion, into the bottom of the basket, where the basket comes and meets the floor. There's a pad, and we cut a hole in that and stuck the camera in there. So that was kind of a very affirming moment that camera produced a photo like that. Kareem skyhook over. There's a couple from the finals over Robert Parrish. Steph Curry's first championship, I remember I had a really cool picture of him coming into the locker room getting sprayed with champagne. I was in 40 championship locker rooms getting soaked, but those are always so much fun because it was the end of a 9-month journey of a marathon, and to see these guys win and be part of that was always super fun. Phil Jackson was always so gracious to me. I was in all 11 of his championship locker rooms, being the first photographer in. So we can go on and on and on, but I just was fortunate to be part of so many eras and be able to document them. And now the fans get to look back, and I get to look back and tell stories to you and other people, and it's fun for me.
Before we get the social media touch points and the podcast and such, since you referenced that you were in all of Phil's championship locker rooms, young Spence Checketts was a PR intern for the Utah Jazz in 1997 and 1998 when Michael Jordan ripped rings off the fingers of John Stockton and Karl Malone. Little known fact, the most watched basketball game, Andrew, in the history of the sport took place here in Utah. It was Mike's last game for the Bulls.
Is
So
that right?
yeah, it took place here. It was Jordan's last game for the Bulls. So before we get kind of the touch points, tell me your memories of 97, 98, those great Jazz Bulls finals matchups.
Well, the Jazz were an incredible team. I mean, coached by, hard-nosed Jerry Sloan and, of course, Stockton and Malone, arguably, one of the top 1, 2, or 3 greatest duos in the history of the league. And I loved coming to Utah. I started shooting games in Salt Lake City when you guys played in the what was it called?
Salt Palace.
Salt Palace.
Yep.
Salt Palace with the asbestos ceiling that I had to work in. I mean, and then you guys opened the Delta Center, and it was wonderful. I loved working in that place. It's one of the easiest cities to work in. You fly right in. Hotels like 2 blocks away. All those intangibles, which we photographers and journalists, it becomes very, very important from all the road trips that we have to make. But I remember the fans were just insane, and they still are, by the way. I think one of the last road trips I made during the 2023-24 season, which was my last season, was to Utah, and the fans there are special. I mean, they love their team. They're so passionate. They're packed in. That arena, the way it was designed, they're right on top of you, literally. They need not much room between us, the fans, and the baseline, which is very unique. And you see other arenas where, the fans are kind of set back. There's a big apron of the court, but not in Salt Lake. But it was just a battle every single game. You guys got your hearts ripped out, absolutely. And Michael doesn't make that shot, who knows what would have happened. But, to be part of that history, you guys played them twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, it just wasn't in the cards, I guess. But great battles. Every game was fun to shoot. The storylines were great. It's kind of reminiscent a little bit of the Lakers Celtics back in the Showtime era, with 2 completely different teams, different fan bases. The cities are completely different, but I just had a lot of fun. I always enjoyed being there, and I hope I can come back as a fan sometime. I always had a great time in Salt Lake. I have a lot of friends still there, and it was a great place to work.
Yeah, and you reference, look, you and I are both from the Northeast footprint, and you're a Brooklyn guy. I'm a Connecticut guy, and all my friends oftentimes will say, "When are you coming home?" I'm like, "Dude, I am home." Like it's good living out here, and it is so much more convenient than when you and I within where you and I grew up. And anecdotally, I got to share something with you before I set you loose. I was back home visiting family a couple months ago. And, my dad asked, "Hey, what time does your flight leave?" My flight was leaving on a Sunday. He said, "What time does it leave?" I said, 4:30. He said, "Okay, we'll leave at about noon." And I was like, "What?" Because you have to deal with the traffic in the Van Wyck. And I can get to this airport, Andrew, in 15 minutes and breeze through and be on the plane. It's such a convenient, beautiful place to live,
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned the Van Wyck. I was just recently in New York with my wife, and they are literally still doing construction
Yes.
in the Van Wyck.
Yes.
I remember when I was a child, when I was a kid in the back seat of my parents' Buick, and they were building the Van Wyck. It's just insane in New York.
Yeah.
L.A. isn't much better, by the way. If you've been to LAX recently, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I grew up in Brooklyn. I wasn't really a basketball fan. I was a big hockey fan growing up, and I moved to L.A. I switched colleges, and I moved to L.A. literally during the blizzard of '78.
Mm.
And what they're going through now in the East Coast has been compared to that, because at the time in '78 it was the biggest snowfall and the coldest winter in the history of the Northeast that they had ever documented. I think I have two daughters who are calling and crying about the cold every single day because they live in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I left, and this is true. I left Logan Airport. I don't even know how a plane got off the ground in that crazy weather. Landed in L.A. sometime in January of '78. It was literally 84 degrees when I landed.
Huh.
And I just looked around and said, well, this is a no-brainer, right? I mean, like, why would I ever even think about going back there?
For sure.
And so I've been here ever since, and, my career took off, and been very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time.
Well, you are a titan in your space. You certainly have utilized the Mamba mentality to achieve greatness in your yard, and that's all we can do, Andrew. Tell our listeners, whether it's the book or the podcast or anything you want to get out there, where they can find your work.
Thanks, Spence. Yeah, I would love it if people, you can get it online or at a popular bookstore, Mamba and Mambacita Forever. It's a beautiful tribute, a visual tribute to Kobe and Gigi's legacy to the art of murals. My podcast is called Legends of Sport, so the YouTube channel, same, Legends of Sport, and at Legends of Sport on Instagram, and you get it on any audio platform. We're in season 8 of the podcast. I think we've gone over the 200 episode mark. I love doing it. I got to get some jazz love though on my podcast. I think Mark was the last jazz person to be on my podcast, and that's way too long ago. So, I wanted to do a sort of a tribute to Frank Layden on my podcast at some point, which I will do. I loved him, Brooklyn guy, of course. So hopefully people will follow us. Tell all your friends to subscribe, because YouTube, everything is measured by subscriptions. So we need people not only to watch, but also to hit that subscribe button. That goes a long way.
Sure does. Well, thank you, sir, for your time. It's always a pleasure. A lot of great memories. We'll set you loose. Have a great All-Star weekend. Hopefully you have some fun things planned, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. It's always great to talk to you, man. Take care.
All right, Andrew Bernstein. Truly, every time we have him on, I'm just reminded of, what a life. What a legend. What a life. How many unbelievable moments he's been able to capture as a photographer in the world of pro basketball. He did other things, too, some football and some baseball. But mainly a lot of NBA finals, some great pictures of John and Carl taking on, Michael and Scottie Pippen, some great stuff with Sloan and Phil Jackson. I mean, he is what a life, man. Happy for a guy like that. I was recently given the Kurt Gowdy Media Award winner, and he referenced his podcast called Legend of Sport. I'm proud of the guest list we have on this show, but, you can hear from Magic Johnson and Phil Jackson. David Stern. I had David Stern on my show, so at least we have that. But it's a really great podcast with a lot of great guests. He referenced 200 episodes. He's actually at 270. And a bunch of people from around the world of sport, not just basketball people. So some good stuff there. I always appreciate Andrew's time. We'll take a break to bring in another Andrew. This one is an Andy, and his name is Andy Phillips, for some football. But before we catch a break, new client on the show, Wasatch Medical Spa, clinically proven technology trusted in women's intimate wellness for over 10 years, now adapted for men. Wasatch Medical Spa, my friend Shelly, who I've been able to get to know, she's awesome. It's the first place in Utah to offer this new technology called Apex RF. It's a non-surgical, drug-free treatment, no pills, no injections, no downtime. Shelly has reported that everybody they've treated so far has noted some noticeable improvement with men's sexual wellness, recommending Apex RF to others looking to improve performance and confidence. Discreet, comfortable, and private. You can get back to your day immediately. Your first visit is an easy 30-minute consultation with no obligation. By the way, as a result of them being a client, your consultation is free, and Shelly has agreed to give you 50% off your first treatment, and that's hundreds and hundreds of dollars in savings. So this is about men's sexual wellness. ED, you probably heard people talking about it, but there are a lot of things that, this technology is thought to be able to improve, not just erectile dysfunction. Best thing you can do is book online at wasatchmedicalspa.com. That's wasatchmedicalspa.com, wasatchmedicalspa.com. Make sure to tell them that you heard me talking about it, you'll get the free consultation, then 50% off your first treatment. It's our friends at Wasatch Medical Spa. Andy Phillips is our guest coming up next on ESPN 700. People are mad. People are angry. We're going to bring in Dave McMenamin, who's a national NBA media member, so we can eviscerate him here in Salt Lake. As the Jazz have been fined for tanking, the NBA hates Utah. Small market stuff. Andy Phillips, though, stopping by on a Friday afternoon. Happy Friday, young man. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm great. I'm great for two reasons, Spence. One, you brought me in with some chili peppers, which is probably in my top five. And then finally got some powder skiing in the last couple of days up at Snowbird. So my soul is very happy right now.
That a guy. Oh, by the way, you can settle a debate Porter and I were having earlier because we're going to have a big storm coming up next week. And so I'm happy for all my snowbro friends. Do people still use the term shred the gnar, Andy?
Yes,
See?
they do. I think as a millennial, I think it's still okay. If you hear someone younger saying it, it means they're just making fun of you.
Oh, man. Well, that's unfortunate because Porter was then clearly making fun of me.
The people he's talking about are his parents that still say that.
So what's the term? I mean, you're obviously an amazing skier, but you don't strike me as like a snow bro. So, but like, what's the term if you want to go get some turns in these days?
That's a good question. I probably need to ask my sons. For me, it's just let's go rip. That might also have some other connotations that if you're out of the ski world, it might not mean the same thing. But let's go rip, let's go shred.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm quite sure you don't know where that bong is behind the tree on like whatever snowbird run, but I'm quite sure that's still a thing, right? Up there somewhere would be my guess. Not your thing.
Not my thing. Not my thing. But there are a few hidden huts around. If you know where to go, you can find them. But to be honest, these days you're riding the lift and you're smelling all kinds of smells.
Okay.
So no one's really hiding it much anymore.
Hey, let me ask you about, because every time I'm watching, is it the Super G? What's the super fast, we're going to go as fast as we can ski event at the Olympics? What's that called?
Well, you have two of them. You have super giant slalom, which is pretty quick. You probably get up to 60 or so. And then you have the downhill where, you can get up to 75, 80 miles an hour on a couple of these tracks.
I think I was watching the downhill. Have you ever attempted? I mean, I know that you've raced and done a bunch throughout the course of your ski life. Have you ever raced like a true downhill event?
I have, yeah. So growing up, I raced all 4 alpine events. So you have slalom, giant slalom, super giant slalom, and downhill. And essentially the radius of the turn increases as you go up to downhill. And I'm actually the junior national champion of downhill. We had a downhill up at Sun Valley, Idaho, and that's kind of what I kind of broke onto the scene as a downhiller and ended up being actually more of a slalom specialist, ironically enough. So yeah, I know a lot about downhill. I love it.
Very cool.
I'm excited for my kids to jump in it when they turn 16 and can make those turns.
Which where'd you ski in Sun Valley? We spent a lot of time there. Where'd you ski in Sun Valley when you won the event?
So it was on Warm Springs. There's a run there called Greyhawk. Yep. And if you know anything about Sun Valley and Warm Springs, it's just like put on your carvers and pin the ears back and just let it rip.
Yeah. I mean, what? I'm just going to ask you because I mean, my skiing years are long behind me, and I've certainly never skied in events like you did. I've very much enjoyed it and missed it. But what's that adrenaline rush like when you are going downhill at 70 miles an hour on skis? Like what's that feeling like, Andy?
It's amazing. It's like you're flying. To be honest though, like you and those who have competed at a high level know you kind of get in this zone, in this mental zone, and there's not a lot you remember. But downhill's a little different because, like slalom course is maybe 45, 50, 60 seconds long. And some of these downhills are 2 minutes long. And so you have to really know where you're going. You have to stay composed. That's why you see a lot of times the best people at the downhill and Super G events are often older guys and girls. Like that's a big reason why Lindsey Vonn was able to come back and have success the last 2 years on the World Cup circuit, is because she knows these tracks. She's very familiar with where she needs to go, and downhill is the one event where no matter where you go in the world, if you're at Kitzbühel or you're in Wengen, the gates are going to be in the essentially in the exact same spot. So you start to learn the hill, where to get speed, where to have your direction off of jumps. And so, yeah, often the older you are, the more successful you can be in those speed circuits until your body gives out.
Have you ever tried the one where you like ski and then you shoot a guy, whatever that's called, the biathlon? Have you ever tried that one?
I haven't, but I was talking with one of my colleagues, one of my fellow coaches up at Snowbird, and I think that's probably the ultimate ski event, because it's like, you've got to have the cardio, you've got to be able to stay composed, and then you've got to be a nasty.
What about the one where homeboy was running uphill on skis? I just saw the video. Do you know what event that is?
Yeah, that's one of the Nordic events, and I don't know the name of it. I can't remember. It's the hill. It's something hill, 10K hill or something like that. But, that's those Norwegians, man. They've got it figured out, and they've got it figured out in track and field, and they've got it figured out in the Nordic events. And they say in Norwegian, you're born with skis on your feet. There's a saying that they have, and it's true. That's why a country of 5 or 6 million people are able to bring home, 40 plus medals at every Winter Olympics. It's pretty amazing.
I can't believe the cardio that those guys have. And I guess there's one guy that's like the Michael Phelps of Nordic who just kicked everybody's ass. So kind of fun to watch. And maybe it's home. Maybe it's right here. Best, most favorite place for Andy Phillips to ski is where?
Oh man, it is. Yep, it's going to be Snowbird. I skied it today off of GAD 2. There's a couple tracks off of GAD 2 that you can't beat. And I'd say a close second is probably. Oh, man, you're putting me on the spot here. I would say probably Whistler, Blackcomb, or Jackson Hole. I think those are probably the two right behind Snowbird Alta.
Very nice. Well, Andy, we'll switch gears here. I'm sure our listeners are loving just talking about random Olympic events. And when they hear Andy Phillips, they think Utah football. And this is the time of year where it is not necessarily front page news, but it's also of interest. So I'm just going to ask you, now that we've had the dust settle for a while and you can actually process the sentence, Kyle Whittingham lives in Ann Arbor, and Morgan Scalley is the new coach, and Devin's back, Bird is back, and we have the transfer portal kind of behind us. Just give us kind of an update where you're at with the entire process. It's been a wild news cycle concerning Utah football over the past couple of months.
It has, yeah, and I think expected. I know a lot of fans weren't happy about what transpired, but that's, when you look back, you go, yep, this is the day and age we live in, and Coach Witt's, Jay Hill's going to say, yep, it was an easy, no-brainer decision. I can go win a national championship at Michigan easier than I can at BYU. And so having that and, seeing also who we've brought in as transfers and who Coach Scalley's put together as a staff, I think is super inspiring. I mean, I'm stoked. Bo Nagahi stepping in as kind of the alumni, as director of alumni, or something like that. And he obviously has a long history with Utah. Really excited to see what the offense and defense can do. Probably not going to be a lot different on defense, which we don't need to be with Coach Swan. And it sounds like the offense is going to continue to be explosive. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I think there will be an acclimation period. But again, I've told you from the beginning, I've got full faith in Coach Scalley. I have no doubt that the culture and the development that's been prominent at Utah for a very long time is going to continue. I mean, that's our bread and butter, regardless of this NIL world that we're living in. Like, Coach Scalley is going to develop, and there will be undervalued athletes that come into the program that will be developed and turn out to be superstars. And so it's just a matter of having some faith and seeing where things go.
I want to underscore that last point because the transfer portal is now behind us. And what Morgan and the staff elected to do is really go the route of smaller schools, some JUCO kids, just schools that aren't necessarily on the P4 level, and then bet on them and elect to develop them and hope that they become good players. And that really is the model that we've seen here for a long, long time. And it's interesting because Sean and I were debating this one day during Crosstalk, and the question was, what would you rather have? Like big-time P4 transfers that have USC experience or Ohio State experience or whatever, or just kids that come from smaller schools that are looking to earn their opportunity. And I think the easy initial reaction is, give me the SC kid, give me the Michigan kid. If he was good enough to play there, let's bring him here. But the other side of the debate, Andy, is someone who's hungry for a chance, and you see their potential and athletic ability. You give them a chance to play on this level, and oftentimes that's proof of concept that's led to a lot of success. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I look at what Indiana's done, and I mean, I know that they've recruited some really good players the last 2 years since they've kind of proven their concept. But you know, they have a formula. Hey, let's take older guys. Here are these metrics that we're looking for physically, and you know, let's recruit those guys. Let's see if they're a good fit for our program, and then once they're in here, let's get her done. And like that is what Utah has done in the last 15 years or so. But I feel like there's a lot of momentum right now. I mean, the last couple of years, new head coach, you know, a lot of guys, a lot of core guys sticking around. I think, honestly, and to your point, you know, let's bring in a couple coaches. I mean, look at who just won the Super Bowl, right? A two-year head coach at Seattle, which, by the way, not totally off topic, but like that MVP should have gone to Jason Myers.
I was going to ask you. I have it written down. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, that as soon as Pointon started to go on the board, I thought, oh man, this is going to get taken away from him. But like as a kicker, you're like, dude, I just nailed 2-3 clutch kicks that put us in the fourth quarter, made us competitive. Like there's got to be some recognition for that, and unfortunately, you know, that didn't go his way, which I guess isn't super surprising. But anyway, that one kind of hurt my soul.
You know, it was interesting because one of my other takeaways, I was thinking about you during the Super Bowl. It really wasn't a very entertaining watch. So my friends that were over to watch the game, we just started debating, like, would you ever give the kicker MVP? Because at the time, Myers had all the points. But the other interesting takeaway, and I honestly didn't know this until I was reading about the game afterwards to do the show on Monday, Seattle was last in the league in going for it on fourth down. And the past 4 Super Bowl winners have all kicked 4 or more field goals. You know what I thought of, Andy, is BYU Utah this year and leaning into the analytics instead of going to get 3 points. That's what came to my mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I didn't know that. I just knew that going into that game, I think he had scored the most points in the NFL for this season, and maybe it was the most points in an NFL season. And then he did, you know, and then he was just ice cold all game long. So, yeah, unfortunate, but I will say that running back is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah,
he's pretty phenomenal.
Yep, no doubt. All right, since you and I last spoke, the Big 12 released the schedule, and the unfortunate part is, if you're a Texas Tech fan, go book your hotel in Arlington for December 4th. They don't play anybody. They avoid Utah. They avoid BYU. Their 4 quote unquote hardest games are all at home. So that, unfortunately, is going to be a dynamic where Tech, in my opinion, one man's opinion, they have the highest-ranked transfer portal class again. They return a group of players. They're probably back in. Big 12 championship game, which leads us to BYU Utah here in Salt Lake, November the 7th. It almost could be like a virtual play-in game because it does feel like only Utah and BYU have proven so far. We'll see what happens. Houston's got a nice class coming in. We'll see what some of the other pieces and, you know, TCU and such, what they're able to do. But up to this point, I feel like Utah and BYU are the only 2 teams who've shown that they can trade punches with Texas Tech. And even there's probably a gap between Tech and Utah and BYU. They're just that good. But, of course, you're a guy that played in this game. A lot of people believe it should be played on the final day of the season. And if it was, and everything unfolds the way I think it might, it would literally be a play-in game for the Big 12 championship. But what do you make of that? You know, what do you think Utah's chances are of maybe getting to, do battle against a team like Tech in the Big 12 championship this year?
I think they're great. I mean, I'm looking at Utah's schedule, and like you said, BYU is kind of the big one. I think at that point in the season, we'll have a pretty good idea about who Arizona, who TCU, who West Virginia, what they look like. And so if Utah can, make it to that point in the season without a loss, it's like, all right, this is a big game. I agree with you. I'd love to have it be the last game of the season. I mean, can you imagine if it had been the last game of the season this past year and how big that would have been? how much fun that would have been. I'm stoked that we had that game's at home. In fact, I just renewed my season tickets. And so I'm pumped that we have that game at home and we can give the team down south a little payback. But, with that being said, like I know how good Tech was last year, and, watching them against Utah, watching them against BYU twice, I was just waiting and hoping that we got another shot at them, because I felt like Utah obviously wasn't at their best, their healthiest when we played them. And so it would have been fun to just trade punches again and get a real feel of where the team actually stacked up. And so I like our chances, and I think should we get in that game and should it be against Texas Tech, Utah has a lot to fight for, a lot to prove, as kind of underdogs and a little bit of a revenge game. And I'm all about that. So I'm hoping that's the case. I have faith that will be the case. I've got a ton of faith in Coach Scally. I think that the ship will just continue to go up. And so, that's my plan is, hey, if we can take down the Cougs on November 7th, I might be booking some flights December 4th, regardless of the snow condition, to watch that Big 12 championship game.
There we go. Hey, before I set you loose, because I've always found your approach to the rivalry and everything that encapsulates it very balanced and fair. And so I probably wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you about Parker Kingston. Last week I went down to the BYU Houston game with my dad and brother and nephew, and Parker actually was there and announced his engagement to his fiance at the basketball game. So watching today, when Parker made his initial appearance down in St. George in Washington after being arrested on felony rape charges, and the bail was set at $100,000 to $10,000 cash payable. Bail was paid and he's released. He's now going to be wearing an ankle monitor. The charges carry anywhere from 5 years to life in prison. These are very, very serious charges, and it's just a really sad, unfortunate situation. Ultimately, I hate when something like this happens and people use it to dunk on a rival because they don't like their football team. This is a very serious, sad story for everyone involved. But I just wonder what your thoughts are before I set you loose.
Yeah, man, I think, take football out of it. Like, this is a super unfortunate situation for everyone involved. And my parents always told me, like, hey, nothing good happens after midnight. And I think the most unfortunate part of stories like this there are a lot of conclusions drawn before anybody really knows what is true and what isn't. And so they use the rivalry to, like you said, like dunk on this player or dunk on this woman who's making the alleged or who has filed the alleged charges, and it's like, hey guys, you don't know any of the details. Like, yeah, you can read the reports and you can, you get a feel for the text messages and the messages that were sent, and there's been an investigation, and obviously there's something really serious going on. But I've also seen it where, like, I can't remember his name, Ariza. He was a punter. Drafted by
Matt Ariza. Yeah,
Bills maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and in that situation it was wild because he ended up not being. He was, I think, charged with something probably pretty similar.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being a complete lie and ruined his 2 or 3 years of his career. And to his credit, like, there was a team, maybe it was the Ravens, that took a chance on him and signed him back and he's tried to clear his name, but that's something that follows you forever. And so I'm not saying one thing's true and one's not. I'm just using that as an example of, like, hey, let's let all the facts come out before you make your judgments, and then make a righteous judgment. Because if what's being alleged is true, like, that's horrible. There's no place for that in this world, and there should be a righteous judgment. And if it's not true, it's the same on the other side. Like, there's no place for alleging things happening that didn't happen. And so let's just hold our judgment until all the facts come out and the legal process kind of starts. And let's definitely not use the rivalry as a way to kind of position ourselves against each other. It's just, let's just talk about humanity here and relate with those that are all involved and pray for the best outcome and that justice is served.
Yeah, well said, buddy. Appreciate the time today. Glad you got to shred the gnar. No big deal. Hope you can do that again soon, okay?
Yeah, for sure. Let's get up and ski a little snowbird pow sometime here.
Love it. Love it. The great Andy Phillips, former Utah kicker, shredder of the gnar. I told you. You mocked me. It's a thing. People say it. They shred the gnar.
I know.
What,
I think
Andy said, what was his? Let's just go rip it, I think is what he said.
There we
and
go.
then he realized he may have made a weed joke, so he backed off that one.
And yeah, no, I think he caught it on the head there, where there are some youngs that are maybe like saying ironically now, that means we're old.
Well, it's just a thing that the Snow Bros say, about to shred the gnar. And Andy was able to shred some gnar today up at Snowbird. All right, before we catch a break, time now for the Uinta Golf PGA Tour update. Join Uinta Golf for the President's Day weekend sale by Worldwide Golf. Save 25% on all clearance apparel, 20% on clearance bags and shoes, and get a prior gen Callaway TaylorMade and Bridgestone balls for just $44.99 a dozen. Swing into Uinta Golf, trusted by golfers since 1971 and home of the 90-day satisfaction guarantee. Uinta Golf, get there. Akshay Bhatia. Oh, wow. Roy Hisatune was able to close out as well. Those two are your leaders through 2 rounds at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Pebble Beach, California, Spyglass on one side, Pebble Beach on the other. So Akshay and Rio, 15 under par. Then it's Ricky Fowler and Sam Burns, birdies 18 to get in at 14 under. Minwoo Lee, Jacob Bridgman, and Sepp Straka all at 12 under. Jake Knapp with a strong finish. He's at 11 under, as is Tom Hoagie. And then a grip of really good players at 10 under par and 9 under par. Paul Pugmire told us that he believes this is the group that could potentially win it. So we'll finish with this kind of cut line. Following 10 under par, Xander Schauffele, Hideki Matsuyama, Matt Fitzpatrick, Jordan Spieth, Nick Taylor, Patrick Rogers, and Keegan Bradley. 9 under par is Bud Colley, Rory McIlroy, Tommy Fleetwood, Russell Henley, Chris Gotterup, and that's your group. So the prior names that I just mentioned, according to our golf expert, are the ones that are still in the mix to win the championship, the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. 5 o'clock hour of the program is next on ESPN 700. All right, Drive at 5 time, Friday afternoon style. Happy Friday to you. It is a warm and sunny day today. It's been a weird winter, of course. It was about 52 degrees and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. We got a pretty warm President's Day weekend, but there's a storm on the way, so you'll be able to shred the gnar. That's right. Andy Phillips just hopped on. He did a little skiing today. Andy, a legendary skier and football player. We've had a busy show. A lot of it, as you would expect, is revolved around the national conversation. Dave McMenamin from ESPN is going to join us coming up in a little bit regarding the Utah Jazz, regarding the NBA finding the Jazz. It actually happened, 15 minutes after our show ended last night. And this has dominated the local, not just the local scene, but the national scene as well. So Jazz are fined $500,000. Indiana Pacers fined $100,000. League saying both teams sat healthy players in recent games while noting that the moves that compromise its integrity won't be tolerated. That's the language. Here's the press release said, quote, overt behavior like this that prioritize draft position over winning undermines the foundation of NBA competition, and we will respond accordingly to any further actions that compromise the integrity of our games. Additionally, we are working with our competition committee and board of governors to implement further measures to root out this type of conduct. The Jazz fine came due to the team's actions in games against the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat. Utah benching Larry Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. for the fourth quarter, even though the players were otherwise able to continue to play and the outcomes of the games were thereafter in doubt. All right, a few things. We talked about it all day. You'll hear us talk about it with Dave McMenamin. I listened to a lot of the conversation today. I listened to Sean earlier. Sean's the only local guy it's worth listening to at that day part. I can promise you that. And then some NBA podcasts. I watch NBA Today. And a lot of the stuff was really honed in on. And some of the reaction here locally underscores the way that we can react to this stuff here in Utah with our kind of inferiority complex in a way. This is not about the NBA hating the Jazz. This is not about the NBA treating the Jazz differently, okay? So I've kind of approached this from a different prism as opposed to getting mad that the Jazz were punished. I'm not mad that the Jazz were punished. The Jazz deserved to be punished. What I'm mad at is why now, why this, and why not the rest of the teams that are doing the same thing and maybe utilizing a different approach. But it doesn't change the bottom line endeavor, okay? Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated, Tom Haberstroh, Yahoo Sports this week. Both of them wrote that their belief is currently, and I'm with them on this, okay? Currently, there are 10 teams in the NBA that every night are unserious about competing. There are 30 teams in this league. That is a third of your product that every night approach competition without being serious, trying to win. That's what's attacking the quote-unquote integrity of the NBA, not just the Utah Jazz. So my beef simply is this. Instead of crying about how everybody hates us because we're Utah and the NBA's mad, the NBA's just going to treat us differently because we're a small market, that's just so silly. Okay, just look at who's won championships over the past 4 or 5 years. Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, Denver. Small markets are winning championships. It takes smart ownership in front office, okay? It takes smart roster construction. And hopefully the Jazz can get there at some point. And hopefully they can figure this out. They're closer now than they have been in 4 years, okay? But they deserved to be punished because they're clearly manipulating lineups and then utilizing smoke screens to lie about their endeavor in the name of keeping their pick. The complicated part is it's the right thing to do. That's the complicated part. But it doesn't mean they're not doing it. They are doing it, okay? So we need to be clear about that. Here's my beef. Sacramento, New Orleans, Dallas, Memphis, potentially the Clippers will see, Washington, Indiana, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Chicago. 10 teams, 10 total teams in your league, Adam Silver, who, by the way, might not be very good at this. I think we're learning that. And I'm a Stern guy, of course. I'm a David Stern guy. Adam Silver might not be very good at this. The league leans into two things, okay? They lean into two things, And it's just getting exhausting because this is what they rely upon. They just signed a $72 billion media deal. So the business of basketball is good. The business of basketball is more than good. It's excellent. And then everybody watches the playoffs. That's what they lean into, okay? And you're not wrong, but I will never be able to do this job covering this sport in this market, being fine with 5.5 months of horrible basketball. I'll never be able to do it. And certainly there are games or matchups, certain times that are better than others. But I watch this league almost every night, man. And I watch almost every single Jazz game for 4 years. Most of the Jazz games have been absolute snooze fest, okay? It's starting to change. There's some ace stuff that I think is awesome. Keontae has shown some really exciting things. Lauri's great. In 49 minutes over 3 games, you should be really excited to watch Jaren Jackson Jr. compete next year. There's some good things happening with this team. And if they can add A.J. DeBonsa or Darren Peterson to the group by maintaining the draft capital, it makes it really, really exciting. But it doesn't change what they're doing to retain their draft asset. But they've been doing it for 4 years. That's what gets confusing. And tanking has gone on in pro basketball for 30 years. You can go back and look at David Robinson and how many games he played every year up until 1996, 1997, when Tim Duncan happened to be a senior at Wake Forest. Do you think that was an accident by the Spurs? It wasn't. And they drafted Duncan, and the rest is history. They also tanked for Victor Wembanyama. And Oklahoma City tanked for Chet Holmgren, and they tanked for Josh Giddey, who they turned into Alex Caruso. This is the way the league works. So again, let me underscore, Jazz deserve this punishment, but so does everybody else, and that's what gets confusing. And why all the attention now when this has happened for 30 years? And there are different ways you go about it, okay? So maybe the Jazz approach of simply sitting players in the fourth quarter is maybe a little bit different. Except that it isn't, because Toronto did it last year with Scotty Barnes. They're far from the only team that A is tanking and B is doing it this way. And now, look, the way that this is typically done without being fined and staying under the radar is the injury stuff, okay? Because there are enough little tidbits of things that are kind of true that you can use for messaging to distract from the bigger underlying point, which is you're losing on purpose. And, anything that you bring to the table beyond an admission is a lie. But you can say things like, oh, do you think our team doctor's lying? Oh, you don't think Jaren Jackson Jr. needed knee surgery? Oh, are you saying that Lowry isn't sick? Like, they use the minute restriction thing today. That's such a bad faith argument. There's I find it insulting, but there are enough little kernels that you can latch on to as far as things that are kind of true and things that are also taboo to even talk about when it comes to the health, that you can use that to lose on purpose. That's what most teams do. And they're the teams that kind of go under the radar, right? But breaking news, teams also misrepresent injury reports and exaggerate injuries in a way that, again, we can't talk about it because the players are hurt. Yeah, but they're also sometimes not, and you're lying to us with that. You use that as kind of this smoke screen with little pieces of truth. It's very flood the zone. It's very political. It's very distract. It's very like we need to get rid of all the illegal immigrants, so we're cool with shooting people in the street. Like, that's what you do. You distract because there are certain things that are true, and then you ignore the bigger underlying point, which is you are losing on purpose to hold on to your draft pick. You are doing that, and the Jazz have done that for 4 years. They deserve to be punished, but so do 9 other teams. I just ask for consistency is all. Dave McMenamin is a national NBA Worldwide Golf, which is really the home of You Into Golf, just sent me an e-gift card for $14.24.
Perfect.
I don't know, like, why? I mean, thanks, but the email literally just spilled in. Nobody bought it for me. It is my birthday next month, so you better start preparing for that.
Potentially your birthday. Maybe it was for your PGA Tour update. I don't know.
Every time I do a PGA Tour update, I get $14.24 to You Into Golf.
That'd be nice.
What can you get at a golf shop for $14.24?
Kick in the pants.
A sleeve? You couldn't even get a sleeve of average golf balls, I don't think.
Maybe some practice balls, but you got to give them back.
Tees, potentially?
There you go.
I am going to get fitted next week. I'm pumped about this. Paul has set this up with Jordan Bloxham up in Centerville. I've never gone through this process. Have you? I don't think you have. I mean, you worked at a bunch of golf courses, but have you ever gone through the fitting process?
I have.
Oh.
Never for like my clubs. Never to get my own clubs. It was always, hey, we are a country club, and I'm the member services guy. So I invited Callaway, TaylorMade, all the above Titleist to come out to the golf course, and as the demo day, as we would call it, unraveled, I would get some fitting done. So I have my measurements. I have, if I wanted to go back in and get some clubs, I know kind of for the most part exactly what I need.
So, okay, so you go through the process, you hit a bunch of balls, the guy has a camera and a tracker, and then they can adjust like the shaft in the head based off your ball flight.
Yeah, I mean,
Feels like cheating.
At this point, it is like not an exact science because you still have to hit the ball correctly. But yeah, you can adjust golf clubs if you have like a bad slice. If you have something wrong with your swing, instead of fixing your swing, you can, not entirely, but you can improve it based upon, fixing the angle of the club head and maybe getting you some more flexible shafts, right? There's a lot you can do. If you let the tools do the work in golf, it's always going to benefit you, and then you can work on your swing.
Are you concerned that I'm going to become a pro after getting new gear and you're going to have to find somebody else to host the show?
It could happen.
Yeah.
I mentioned it earlier, right? Tony Finau still looking for his first major. He's 36.
I'm older than that. I would love to be a professional golfer. I think if you gave me, if I could snap your fingers, genie in a bottle, you could do one thing. I think at this point in my life, that would be my thing.
Okay.
What would be your thing?
Golf would be fun. I've always liked those like mano-a-mano sports, right? Now, I would probably choose like a quarterback, but at the same time, when it's just you out there, there's something cool about that.
Yeah.
So it might be tennis for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think once upon a time, it definitely would have been like starting point guard for the Jazz or the Knicks. The football thing is just like, respectfully, a lot of them just don't age well because, they're getting smacked in the head all the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk to that being if you could guarantee that you were going to live a healthy, fulfilling life after your career is over, that would be a cool thing.
Get the Tom Brady treatment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Just drop back and throw it, and if you get touched with a errant finger, flag flies. I'll go with that.
Lead singer, guitar player, rock band.
There we go.
That would be a fun life.
An uphill Nordic sprinter.
The video of that dude kicking everybody's trash by sprinting up. I would die.
Apparently,
the cardio you need to be able to do that is insane to me.
And apparently that guy just wins every gold medal.
Yeah.
So the fact that it looks unhuman, it is. He's beating all of these Olympians by wide margins.
Well, and look at him. After they cross the finish line, they all basically die. Yeah. They just crash on the ground and they can't breathe. It's like, dude, are you good? I could not do that endeavor. All right, Porter, before we say goodnight, the Parker Kingston stuff, I've never enjoyed talking about stories like this, but we should update everybody. I saw Parker Kingston last week when I went to the BYU Houston game, and he had proposed to his girlfriend. And he was in the stadium or in the arena, and they showed him on the Jumbotron. And so it was kind of a wild thing to see him donned in a striped prison jumpsuit at the Purgatory Correctional Facility in Washington County. So it was his initial appearance. If you guys missed Sports Court, we do it every Thursday with Handy and Handy. We basically did the entire 15-minute segment on this. It was very helpful because I had a lot of questions, and they're, attorneys, lawyers. I'm not. So he was arrested and jailed on a felony rape charge earlier in the week. Initially, the bail was not set. Turned out that they thought he was a bit of a flight risk. So the deputy Washington County attorney, Ryan J. Shum is his name, representing the state. And then Kara, I believe it's Tangaro of Salt Lake, that's Parker's attorney, made an agreement beforehand to allow Kingston to be released on a $100,000 bond and $10,000 of that in bail payable to the court upon his release, so a cash bail there. The charges, as we talked about yesterday, they hold a sentence potentially between 5 and lifetime prison down in St. George in Washington. So between 5 years and life in prison. Very serious. Parker turns 22 next month. He has to wear an ankle monitor for at least the next 6 months. He cannot have contact with the alleged victim. Includes any third-party contact with her roommates or possible witnesses that are what's characterized as citizen witnesses. He cannot use any social media. So we'll see. I'm trying to find, 60 days. He has to wear the ankle monitor for 60 days. And that time they will, quote, consider other form of electronic monitoring. He will be back in court next on February the 25th. That's actually 12 days away. I thought they would try to push this out. Another court review with both attorneys will be held on March 18th, and the preliminary hearing is set for April 13th. So the court documents, Parker's been charged with rape, a first-degree felony, in that defendant had sexual intercourse with another without his or her consent, in violation of Section 465402 of the Utah Code. We're learning more. She was 20 years old at the time of the alleged incident. It was a year ago, February of 2025. She reported on February 27th, so just a couple of days later. She reported a sexual assault to police officers at St. George Regional Hospital in southern Utah. And the same probable cause statement notes that Parker Kingston, in an interview with police, claimed all sexual activity with the alleged victim was consensual. BYU, finally, their statement said, quote, BYU became aware today of the arrest. Gordon Monson wrote a really good piece, my old friend from the Salt Lake Tribune, pointing out that BYU became aware today of the arrest is different than BYU became aware today of the investigation. And I have to wonder how a lot of people, and I'll go to sltrib.com, read what Gordon wrote today. Whenever Gordon writes something about BYU and the church's involvement, he is, how shall I say, speaking for certain people that want a message sent. And there have been a lot of this kind of these types of situations with BYU athletes over the past calendar year. Obviously, the Jake Retzlaff stuff, the Kennard Davis arrest. Here with Parker Kingston, there's a really horrible story involving a former baseball player. And this is a university, of course, ran by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they've always viewed the athletic department and teams that play at BYU as a mouthpiece for the message. Things like this are when conversations start to happen about what you should do when it comes to BYU athletics. So finally, BYU, let me finish the statement. Quote, BYU became aware today of the arrest of Parker Kingston. The university takes any allegation very seriously and will cooperate with law enforcement due to federal and university privacy laws and practices for students. The university will not be able to provide additional comment. Parker has admitted to the interaction and the sexual interaction. He said it was consensual, but obviously that's against the honor code. So we'll see what transpires here. Do you have anything you want to? Do you have anything you want to add to this? You want to just catch a break?
Yeah. No. I mean, would as you mentioned, point you towards the interview we did yesterday with the fellas of Handy and Handy Law. It's obviously an awful situation, and once the facts do come out and we can the dust settles on it, we can learn more. But a trend with athletes in general, and we had a bunch of issues at Utah State, and there's been here at University of Utah, and then the recent ones at BYU. Not great, and obviously something that we will continue to cover and do so to the best of our ability.
We are off on Monday, a little President's Day action. We'll be back on Tuesday. Porter, do you dare tease a Tuesday show on a Friday afternoon?
On a Tuesday edition of The Drive, Aaron Falk is going to stop by the studio. I believe Gordon Monson may as well, so we'll check in with him. And then we're going to grill one Bobby Marks on the program.
Ah, okay. The infamous Bobby Marks, who's, by the way, the nicest guy in the world. He's the sweetest guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
And he's just catching strays. But it'll be fun to catch up with Bobby on a Monday, or excuse me, on a Tuesday. All right, we'll say goodnight. Special thank you today to Dave McMenamin, Paul Pugmire, as well as Andrew Bernstein and Andy Phillips. ESPN700sports.com is where you go if you missed any of it. Check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Available wherever you get your shows. Have a great long weekend. Enjoy yourself. Be good to yourself and also be good to each other. We'll talk to you on a Tuesday drive. And as always, you can catch that right here on ESPN 700.